All right, boys. Lock in.
It's our core foundation, man. Grit.
I'm fired up. I'm fired the f*** up, boys.
It's pumping right now. It's got my juices pumping, boys.
Woo! Welcome to Crunch Time Sports with Jeff, Booner, Lukas, and Gentry. It is Tuesday, October 29th, and it seems like we do these shows and things always transpire before the show. I mean, you guys notice it happens quite often, to be honest with you. We'll get into it, the JMO stuff coming out. We'll get into a couple interviews. We have Wade Fink joining the show, who's a criminal defense attorney. So, and instead of hearing us share any legal advice or opinions, we have an actual lawyer share advice and opinions. He'll be joining us at 8:15. We have Dion at 8:30. We'll talk some trade deadline stuff. We got a packed show today, fellas. Packed show.
Hey, I'll say this. Obviously, you don't like anything like that. I love when we have things to talk about, good or bad. It gets me a little pumped up to hop on with the fellas. When all this news breaks today, it seems like you guys know that I drive a lot in my life. Seems like every time there's big Detroit Lions news that breaks, I'm behind the wheel, and I always just have to pull over to the side of the road and all right, here we go, time to lock in. But hey, it's gonna be an interesting show. I'm pumped up, honestly, to hear having an attorney on about all this Jameson Williams stuff, because the craziest thing about all this, I'm not going to get too much into my opinion on this yet. It's just the facts of everything. It's just you just never know what's actually going on. So I'm interested to hear what you guys think about all this with JMO. I'm interested to hear what the attorney, I think we're having Dion on, and so I'm interested to hear his thoughts on it. It's good to kind of get a knowledge of everything and kind of before, at least for me, guys, not the smartest light bulb in the room or whatever that saying is, but I could figure something out. So I just have to learn all the facts here, and then I'll figure out how I feel about this. This is a lot. There's a lot going on.
Yeah, it's a lot of stuff, and it's crazy that there's a spotlight like this on Jameson Williams just because he's a professional athlete, and obviously we'll save our opinions, but it's Tuesday. We're all expecting news from the Detroit Lions. We were hoping it was going to be a trade, and it's not that. And we talked about, Booner brings it up all the time, how Tuesday nights, that's usually when transactions are made around the NFL. So for this week, it looks like most likely Lions aren't going to be making a new move. But the news is, again, for about 2 weeks, 3 weeks now, Jameson Williams. We'll get into it, but it's going to be interesting to break down. Can't wait, fellas.
Can I just want to say this, too? That I was expected to come into tonight's show and us have Detroit Lions trade news. I've been saying it. I said last Tuesday, I said next Tuesday, by the time our show goes live, there's going to be big Detroit Lions news. And I mean, I guess I wasn't wrong. There's news that's out. It's not
you knew, you had sources.
Yeah, I thought
Channel 7. Is that what it is?
Multiple sources.
Are you the source at Channel 7 right now?
Maybe I am. Maybe I get paid from Channel 7. It looks like there's a lot of people on Twitter who hate Channel 7 right now because of this whole situation.
Popular narrative.
And I don't want to get into it. Never mind. I guess we can get into this stuff and have the conversation.
Yeah, no, I do. I want to get into it, and I want to make this very clear. I took this a little personally, but at the same time, I understand this is what comes with the job. I mean, we talk about sports, and my job most of the time is reacting to breaking news, stuff that gets, stuff that comes out, and I have to share my opinion. And obviously, in this business, urgency with content. I have to make a video with limited research. I try to do as much research as I can in a short period of time to get content up, and I try not to be super opinionated until more of the news comes out, until we get more information. But I put out a video probably about 2 hours ago when it first announced. And, it seemed like the comment section was kind of split. A lot of people were mad at me, I guess, for quote, ruining the man's reputation, which doesn't really make any sense because it's news I'm reacting to. I didn't do any of this. But anyway, the other thing is Jameson Williams, man, it seems like the last week, he's been in the news for everything not football related. We talk about football related things as in how will the Lions move on without him, but the suspension, that's for performance enhancing substances. And then this comes out about it's, and I want to explain it. So we have the full context because I recorded the video. I read word for word the article that is being reported. on everything that's happened. So I wanted to make it very clear the information we had, and I wanted to make sure the audience could hear the information so nothing's misconstrued. What I'm gathering is this, and I'll ask Wade this when he joins the show. Essentially, Jameson and his brother were pulled over. I think Connor and Jefferson, if I'm not mistaken, is where they were at, and they both had a firearm under their seat, or one was in the back seat, one was under JMO's seat. The one in the back seat, both guns were registered to Jameson and his brother. Both guns were registered. Jameson's brother has a CPL. JMO does not have a CPL. So
you guys call it in Michigan, because that's what I was confused with, the CPL.
Yeah, it basically I read a lot of the legal stuff, and again, like I'll ask Fink this stuff so he can give us more clarification. But based on what I've read in the state of Michigan, if you go out and purchase a firearm and it's registered to you, that is one thing. Now, if you go out in a vehicle, especially in this instance, you have a firearm on you. If you do not have a CPL, you have to have that whatever weapon in a case, in the trunk, unloaded. Like you have to have it you can't just have it like under your seat. You know what I mean? Like you have to have a concealed license to carry, especially a pistol, something like that. You can't get into a car, not have a CPL, have your gun on you. So that's where this storyline kind of starts here. Is Jameson had the weapon, it was registered to him, but he didn't have a CPL. I think at first his brother was basically saying, well, can I, both these weapons are registered to me. JMO admitted like, no, it is my weapon. He did say things like I played for the Detroit Lions, which it's not even that big, whatever. Like people can say, well, he says that so he protects himself a little bit, which I do think is fair. I'm not going to harp on that. They have put him in the cop car. They had a supervisor come over, which is basically protocol when you have high profile athletes. Someone comes over to make sure everything goes smooth. Cause obviously, publicity wise, if anything happens in this situation, it'll be a huge deal. So they call over a supervisor. They talked. JMO's in the police car, and they basically talked to the officers and agreed to kind of let him go. And that was kind of it. Now, the Detroit police is investigating why he was let go. Like that's where the article came out. Detroit police are investigating why Jameson was let go, considering he didn't have a CPL on him. He didn't have a CPL at all, but he had the weapon on him. So that's where this stuff is coming from, is the Detroit police are investigating why this happened. Now, and I'm going to ask Wade this as well, but I believe officers are allowed to kind of make that judgment, like based on the, in their expertise of like, are they dangerous? Like obviously Jameson and his brother having a CPL and JMO, they both made this is where, he did the absolute right thing. They made the weapon. They made it very clear they had a weapon in the car right away. So it's really not like this huge deal to where like he was doing something super incriminating, but it's as simple as understanding like in the state of Michigan, these are the rules when you have a firearm. If you're going to bring it in a car, you need, especially under your seat or in the back seat or just kind of chilling, you need a CPL, and he does not have a CPL. So that's where, he messed up. I'm not even going to say, and by the way, if there's anyone out there saying like he should have been arrested or anything, that is ridiculous. It's up to the officer to make that judgment. They didn't make that judgment. But we have to, it should be universally known. JMO made the mistake. I get it. He's in Detroit. He's in a dangerous area. Like that was his excuse. Like I live in Detroit. Like, that's why I have a weapon. That's not how the law works. Like you can't carry a weapon without a CPL and just be like, well, I'm in Detroit. Like, even though there is truth to that. Like, I understand that, given especially he's a whole high profile athlete. Like you saw what happened with Josh Reynolds in Denver. Like, okay, I get that, but that doesn't excuse he broke the law. You know what I mean? He broke the law technically. So it's going to be blown out of proportion. People are going to talk about it. We're talking about it. This is why I love that Wade Fink is joining the show. So we'll get a professional's opinion, but that's kind of, essentially the story of what happened, essentially.
And Jeff, when did all this originally transpire? Because this didn't happen like
this was weeks ago, October 8th, I believe.
Yes.
Or October 7th or 8th.
Tuesday night or something like that. Random Tuesday, yeah.
Yeah, so this is a thing too, guys. And again, like Jeff said, like when you go about these situations, it's tough because like everyone just instantly goes to, hey, JMO's in the news again. Like everyone's going at Channel 7. I spoke with the doc and I don't think he'll mind me, but like he even mentioned, like, because I sent him our tweet, like, hey, like, are these the correct facts? Like, what do you hear? This isn't a situation to where it's like the investigation, I think, is opening up on JMO. I think it's more so like the police and the camera footage and all of that. Now, again, when we get Wade on, I'm interested to hear his thoughts on this investigation opening back up. Like, are they opening it up on the police officers that let JMO go? Because that's what it seems to be, is that they're basically essentially opening up this investigation to those police officers that thought it was okay to let Jameson and his brother go after, having him detained and all of that. So I think that's kind of what's going on with why this is getting reported now and it's coming out. This happened October 8th. Like, this has been on for weeks. I don't know if you guys remember on Twitter, there was actually Minnesota Viking fans that had like a connection within the Detroit police that weeks ago said there was something going on with JMO and some gun charges or something. And no one really believed them. It's like these Vikings fans before the Vikings game saying stuff. And then somehow it came out and this all happened. So I'm interested to kind of know like the timeline of it. But it like, to me, I don't understand the sense of it. Everyone going at JMO for it. I'm just interested to know the details of how all of this goes down. And like, if he doesn't have his CPL and his brother does, like, where all legally that happens. Obviously, they felt it was okay for him to leave and let him go. I don't know if that was because, hey, I play for the Lions, so they said, okay, you play for the Lions, you're good to go, or if it was, I don't know. There's so much to this story that I feel like is unknown, and it's like, hey, we have to figure all this stuff out before everyone starts, because there are a lot of people that jump to conclusions with JMO because he's been in the news or his name's always out there, and the suspension that he's currently going through right now these 2 weeks. So you sit there and you're like, it's easy for people to just right away to be like, oh, JMO, and then it's on the opposite side for people to defend him. So it's like, hey, well, I'm interested to know more so of the facts of, all right, how does it, like, what's going on here? Like, is it going to be legal troubles? What's going to happen? So I don't know. It's a lot, fellas. A lot the last few hours trying to figure this out.
Let's bring on a man who could. I'm
pumped for this.
We just so happens we know Wade, and Wade's in dad mode, but he's like, you know what? I'm joining the show. I got you. I got the fellas. So please welcome a man who, this is what he does. I mean, he's a criminal defense attorney at Wade Fink. You can check him out. He's a Detroit sports fan as well, so he knows sports. But please welcome to the show, Mr. Wade Fink. Wade,
what's up, doing, guys? Man? Oh, I'm doing great. I am grateful for that introduction and you guys having me. My wife is putting two to bed by herself, but she'll forgive me.
Well, I'll ask you, Wade. I mean, you saw this kind of come out as we did. Your professional opinion on this. Like, I know it happened weeks ago, and I don't know like the details. You obviously are more familiar with the state of Michigan and what can and cannot happen with this type of stuff. But what'd you make of it when it initially happened, and kind of the predicament JMO's in, and how much is on him? How much is he at fault of this situation?
Yeah, I mean, so listen, we know what we know from this story, so we have to take the alleged facts as they are in the clips of video that we do have. I'll tell you this. Let me tell you the letter of the law, and then I'll tell you the practical parts, and hopefully that's helpful to your listeners. The letter of the law is this: you know, there in Michigan, in order to conceal a weapon, right, to hide it on your person or anywhere, frankly, you need a license, right? You need a CPL, we call it, concealed pistols license. And JMO apparently did not have that. And a question has come up about, whether or not someone else can possess or conceal someone's weapon, like his brother, who did in fact have his CPL. I should probably have mentioned both guns were registered, which is the first step in this. These are registered weapons. These aren't stolen or street guns or have the serial numbers obliterated or something shady like that. These are both registered weapons. And then the question becomes, do you have a CPL? Is it properly stored if you don't? Or is there other circumstances that warrant further inquiry? Technically speaking, by the letter of the law, his brother, right, cannot, by statute, cannot possess JMO's gun and conceal it if the gun owner, the person whose gun you're borrowing, does not also have a CPL. So by the absolute letter of the law, if we were just to accept the facts as true that this was a concealed weapon under a seat, accessible to him, the stop and search of and seizure of his person was all good. All those things happened correctly. By the letter of the law, that's problematic. But that's where a big part of this comes in. And interrupt me if I'm going on and too much.
No, you're good.
Narrative form, but that's where the big part of this comes in is we leave in this state and this country a massive amount of discretion to law enforcement. Law enforcement was police on the streets and prosecutors in making charging decisions. If police arrested or cited every single instance of criminal activity, that is whether technical or more than technical, you would have an even worse criminal injustice problem. We need police to be able to exercise some sort of discretion. And when you see a situation where you have two individuals who you now have identified who they are in relationship to the community with registered firearms, one of which has a CPL, the other from another state, he's been in this state for a couple years now since he's been drafted, doesn't have a CPL, but otherwise has a registered weapon. The police are absolutely entitled to assess the situation, whether this warrants a citation, whether this warrants an arrest, or whether this should result in nothing. They make that decision all the time. I have a client who started carrying his weapon 5 days before his license was actually issued. Got stopped in those 5 days. Good thing he had a police officer and later a prosecutor who was practical and used common sense. That's not a good use of that statute, even though technically he was CCW, carrying a concealed weapon. It's a 5-year felony. Could have been charged, could have been pursued, and we wouldn't have had a defense. You need police to be able to exercise discretion. So I think Ross Jones, I'm sorry to name drop him on your show if this goes on.
No, you're good.
I think Ross Jones fancies himself a hero here, or an intrepid reporter who's happened upon some sort of corruption or injustice going on here. How is JMO getting treated different than the public? When really he's done the opposite. That not only has he put JMO, a young black man in the city, choosing to live in the city of Detroit, in legal jeopardy himself and his career, but he's also now put the pressure on police unjustifiably. Sometimes police should have pressure, of course, unjustifiably, which is just going to boomerang onto people who otherwise need police to use good discretion. And I assure you, there are a lot of people in the city of Detroit interacting with Detroit law enforcement who need good cops to use good exercises of discretion. That accomplishes none of that. And that's why this story, and I tweeted what I tweeted, and I think you guys saw, frustrates me.
Yeah, wait, and I just want to kind of get clarification on this, and this just, maybe it's a bad question, but it's kind of two parts. So just kind of taking what you said and what I'm seeing online, is this kind of just like I don't want to say like a nothing story, but essentially just like, hey, this could have been avoided. This didn't need to happen because of the report that's been put out there by, as you said, Ross Jones from Channel 7. And then kind of following that with this investigation, it seems like it's just like this, what is kind of the basis of the investigation? Is it just, hey, they're looking at how this kind of went about, like with the police officers, and they just wanted to make sure that it was done the right way? Is that essentially kind of what I'm taking from this? It was really nothing to an extreme. It was just more so, hey, let's do our work and make sure this is handled correctly.
Well, keep in mind that I'm reading this along with you in terms of where the process is. As I read it, reading between the lines, and just with my experience in cases, what I see here is the police exercise discretion to choose not to citation or make necessarily a warrant request, or certainly not go through with the arrest, which is a perfectly legal thing for the police to do. I want your audience to understand that. The police can make decisions based on their sound discretion of whether to arrest somebody, give someone a ticket, issue charges later. I mean, that happens all the time. That's what I think happened. And then I think the story comes out, and you have someone who really thinks that they're onto something, apply public pressure now to the police by not only exposing the story, but suggesting that there was something untoward going on, that he was treated well because he's a Detroit Lions player. And now you have these lines within the story saying it's being reinvestigated, or the warrant is being examined. So what I read into that is now the prosecutor feels pressure that we treat everyone the same. JMO's not going to get any special treatment in this county. We're going to review it, and this shouldn't happen this way, and this officer did this wrong. And that's what I'm saying by the effects of this story, despite how I'm sure this journalist feels about himself right now with his big breaking story. This effect of this story will only hurt individuals and their actions with police, because this was a good function of law enforcement. This was law enforcement going to their higher ups. They have a policy when they have high profile arrests, and they should. If you're going to arrest a judge, or you're going to arrest the mayor, or you're going to arrest a mother with kids in the car, you should have policies to evaluate the situation. Call your superior, call the sergeant. Let's talk this out and make the right decision. That's what they did. And that was a good exercise of discretion, and they can decide what to do later, whether this warrants charges. But to expose this in a way that, oh, JMO was going on and on, I'm a Detroit Lions player, and clearly someone had a wallpaper on their phone that made him a Lions fan, so that necessarily means something untoward was going on. That's not at all what the video bore out. Jameson Williams was sad and frustrated, it seemingly with himself, that he's got practice. I'm a Lions player. What am I? It was exasperation more than asking for something, at least as I heard it. So I hope that answers your question. It's not a nothing now that it's being driven the way that it is in terms of the narrative that somehow he got special treatment. What I want people to understand is this stuff happens all the time in ordinary interactions with non-famous people.
Right.
And it should. So trying to frame it that way to make it something necessarily untoward puts pressure on police and prosecutors that, trust me, you don't want them to feel as though they need to arrest and charge everyone lest they get in trouble later.
So this really, this could have been avoided if that story, like that could have brought that back to life and kind of essentially made this a bigger deal than it essentially was. Yeah. That's kind of
the reporter's at fault, essentially.
That's
bringing this all to
wow.
light.
Yeah,
is that kind of word is.
That's crazy.
I'm sure that if you had Ross on this, he would push back on the newsworthiness of this story, and he would make the spin this into police shouldn't be treating citizens differently just because he was a Lions player, and this cop said something about I think he said something to the other officer, I'm going to kill you too, or something like that in frustration. I'm sure that's the pushback I would get. What I would say is this isn't newsworthy, because what it has the impact of doing is placing undue influence and pressure on law enforcement to then encourage arrests and charges of a young black man on the Detroit Lions and a young black man not on the Detroit Lions. That is the concern that I don't think WXYZ even really cared to have the analysis of whether that was newsworthy for this reason. I'm not sure, guys, that there's some really good journalists in Detroit, really good federal court reporters, state court reporters. I'm not convinced that someone else just decided not to publish this story. You're publishing a non-charge, non-arrest, and now that's turning into pressure to now charge him with a crime. I mean, think about that. Is that a story to be proud of? Is that a Pulitzer winner? For me, it's not. For me, it's not.
That's a tough story to do. That's terrible, honestly.
And Wade, just to kind of get some clarification, because I know you kind of you spoke a lot about it, but just something I'm still kind of need a little bit more clarified. So a warrant was issued. Okay, that's either on JMO. Let's say it's on JMO. What's the worst situation that can come out of this?
Well, so you tell me if there's something. As I read it in the WXYZ story, is the warrant request is being examined. That's okay. What I read in the WXYZ story. Now, let me qualify that. If I'm wrong or there's better information, then this is irrelevant. But I'll tell you what that means as I read it. Police, when they do an investigation, in any case, whether it's a murder or a misdemeanor, OWI, whatever it is, they put together their evidence, police reports, videos, whatever it is, and they submit that all in what's called a warrant request to the prosecutor's office. And ordinarily what that warrant request will say is, we suggest that you charge this person with X crime, or you shouldn't charge him with anything. So at some point, whether that night or now, as in light of this story, a warrant request or package went to the prosecutor with a recommendation, and now the prosecutor's office is reviewing whether to charge Jameson Williams with the carrying of a concealed weapon, which is a 5-year felony. The impact of that would be he'd be charged with a felony. And we've seen other players in the NFL be charged with felonies in various circumstances and the process that goes on from an NFL standpoint. From a legal standpoint in the state, he would go through the process, and he's got a very good lawyer in Todd Flood. That's what would happen if charges were issued. But my goodness, if they go from a situation where they felt as though the circumstances were we shouldn't charge this based on, I said this before, but just to make it clear to everyone listening, you observe a situation and as police officers and prosecutors, and you want them to use common sense. You don't want them to be robots. If you see senior citizens playing a dollar poker at their nursing home, right? Technically that's unauthorized gaming, is it not? Do we want to charge the senior citizens with unauthorized gambling? Of course. Yeah. So you want an exercise of discretion. And as you look at this, you look at 2 registered guns that were not on their person. I have no idea if they were loaded, what kind of, I don't know anything about that. But we have 2 registered weapons. One person has a CPL. Should J-Mo have had one? Yeah. And should he be more responsible about it? Of course. I'm not going to argue any of those things. But as you look at that as a picture, does that present a situation where you think, yeah, this 20-something-year-old should be charged with a felony in this circumstance? There are far more egregious carrying a concealed weapon where people are prior felons and shouldn't have a weapon at all, where people are carrying guns that don't have serial numbers, are stolen weapons, and things of that nature. So there are, of course, appropriate uses of the statute, but we want police to look at situations and say, is this worthy of an arrest? Is this worthy of a charge? And here, I think globally on balance, this didn't warrant it. And reporting it now in this way might make that happen. And that's a tragedy. That is not something that should be given a pat on the back to the reporter that somehow he's done us good, because he's hurt us too, who have to have interactions with police for better or worse in the community.
Yeah. And by the way, I agree with Hakeem the Dream. I mean, Wade, if we get into some crap, I'm reaching out to you, Wade.
Oh, instantly, man.
This whole show has a get out of jail free card. All right. So put it in your wallet. Put it in your wallet and save it.
Well, Wade, I'm glad I reached out to you because we obviously we create content. A lot of this is breaking. I love to have a guy like you on that kind of break this down. We're looking at the reporter for kind of putting this story and making it, well, no, now the public has like this image of J-Mo because of the said reporter that made this could have been a big nothing burger between the police and J-Mo, essentially. Like they could have been reported.
It could have been reported in a balanced way about decisions that are made on a daily basis about whether to charge someone, emphasizing the fact that they were illegal weapons. We don't know anything about whether the stop was good or bad, how they stopped him, how they approached the car, where the gun was stored other than under his vehicle. Was it within his reach? Was it within his person? Was it next to his brother? Was it, all of these things, all it was done was to drive the narrative that the police gave favoritism to a Detroit Lion. And that is, something that they felt was going to drive clicks, I'm sure. That is my frustration. Not that investigative reporting is important, and there was probably a way to tell the story that didn't have the same narrative being spun online.
There you go. Check out Wade on Twitter, on X as well.
That was helpful. That helped me out a ton.
Breaks it all down at Wade Fink. Wade, you know what? I would say we'll talk to you again. Hopefully, we don't really have to. Hopefully,
make it about a Packer next time, or
there we go.
Love that.
Or Viking.
I appreciate you, Wade.
All right, guys. Talk to you soon.
Wade.
Go Lions. All right.
There you go. Wade Fink joining the show. Sharing his opinion on the Jameson Williams situation.
That helped out a ton.
Yeah, it did.
I was before the show, and like even Jeff, I called you. I'm like the facts of all this. Everything's just like there's so many people on one side and the other, and here and there, and the comments that we get. Like we just post it just to, hey, this is just news. This is what's happening, and the comments under our stuff. It's just like. This should have been, now that I take away, just quick takeaway from Wade, this should have been, as a Michigan fan would say, a nothing burger. Like, this should have been nothing. Like, Ross Jones putting this out on Channel 7 and making this what it is. Like Wade said, he could have done it a different way. This felt, now I'm not going to say is an attack, but it felt like it was at a spot to where it was like, this is going to, like, if J-Mo does end up getting prosecuted and something happens out of it, Ross Jones, like that, what are we doing if this happens to everyday people, like non-famous people, that police officers, hey, we're able to see if we want to let this person go, and that was what happened with J-Mo, and they let him go. They felt everything was good. Hey, he's going to get his CPL and all that. Okay, sweet. But for the article to come out the way that it did and paint the picture, especially like that, felt like it was bad because obviously J-Mo's going through the suspension. We've know J-Mo's been in the news at points for different things, the gambling stuff, the dumb fireworks situation, all these dumb things. It felt like, to me, honestly, as I'm starting to wrap this around my head, it felt like it was a low attack at JMO. Like, hey, like he's weak right now because he's in the suspension, this came up, this happened, could have just left it. And that's what it felt like to me. So what Wade said, that helps kind of wrap that around my head a little bit. This should not be a thing as big as it is.
The video I made earlier, like I was upset with the fact that JMO was even in this situation. The fact that, again, in the state of Michigan, if you're going to carry a weapon, you have to have a CPL. It's that simple. Now, is it being blown up? Absolutely. So I hope people don't watch that video and immediately assume I hate JMO. It's like, again, it's such a tough situation. Like, you just can't be in that situation. But again, like Wade is right. It's on the WXYZ for making it a bigger story than what it actually.
They let him go, and
it's not as big as a story as they made it to be.
I just find it so hard to believe that, one, anything will come out of it with legal system, and two, with the NFL, because we talk about off the field issues and we talk about Jameson Williams. I look over in Kansas City and what Rashee Rice happened in the offseason. He still hasn't been punished by the NFL. And that was something where you're talking about two other people were hurt in the car accident, and then he's walking away. And I just look at the two situations with Jameson Williams, the amount of spotlight around that, and then Rashee Rice, and it's, what are we in, week 7, 8 of the NFL, and no one is talking about that. So this is, I think, in my opinion, the definition of a nothing burger. Like, yeah, it's like, how does this affect the Detroit Lions? We're talking about as Lions fans. Very little, little, because I doubt a suspension will come out of it. And again, this happened 2 weeks ago. It's not like it happened today. So it's not like we're finding out, oh my God, JMO still can't get it together. And I think it's one of those things where Jameson Williams, he might have more maturity issues than other people on the team or around the NFL. And that's okay. Not everybody's going to be the same, but he's a mature individual enough to not put himself and this team in actual, truly, like, serious situations. I think Jameson Williams is still a smart individual, but he's making young, dumb mistakes right now, and those will get straightened out.
Yeah, let's have on Dion, because he's waiting patiently, and he's walking.
Let's
go.
The
shit storm today with all the news. Now we got our guy Dion to join the show, help us break this upcoming game down, share his thoughts on the trade deadline. So please welcome to the show, Dose of Dion. Dion, what's going on, brother?
Man, hey, I'm glad y'all had Wade on. You know what I mean? Look, hey, I'm jumping in here, and I know the news went down. I hope they don't ask me some tough questions on my thoughts on this, because I have no idea. I have absolutely no idea. That was good. Appreciate the last guest.
Don't even worry about it, Dion. We're just as fucking confused as you are. But you know what? That's why we love having you on. We get to talk about the trade deadline, some Detroit Lions stuff. I want, honestly, dude, your thoughts. And we'll get into like the game and stuff like that. But the Chiefs and the Lions here, two best teams in the league. You see the Chiefs trading for DeAndre Hopkins. They needed a wide receiver. They traded for Josh Uche. They needed more help and on their pass rush. What do you make of kind of this week? Your urgency as a Lions fan, someone who covers the Lions, for Brad Holmes kind of going out and making a move here. And honestly, you could talk about what you've seen out of this pass rush last 2 games, because I'd love your thoughts on that as well.
Yeah, I mean, I think first off, I feel like we have to maybe give some attention, and I'm sure everybody here is, but just make sure that we don't overlook the guys that are producing in the meantime. Like, obviously, Minnesota, we didn't really do much, so I'm not going to act like we were cooking on Minnesota without Hutchinson. But this last week against the Titans, like, Muhammad stepped in and he played a pretty darn good football game. I mean, it's like it wasn't the stiffest competition, right? You had a third string right tackle in, but he went out and he performed well, and they found a way to get it done with that. And these are, they're not the big flashy name, but they are guys that they acquired that are making it happen. And regardless of how it looks, they're undefeated without Hutchinson. Small sample size, but they're undefeated without him. So they're making it work. I think for me, I don't have a ton of urgency to maybe get the deal done before the Packers game. I'd like to see that happen, especially after seeing the last game with the Pack. Well, specifically seeing them play Houston and seeing how the tackle position struggled a little bit there. But to be honest with you, if we made a move now, I don't know how much that would even impact that matchup specifically, depending on how massive the move actually is for the Lions. So I'm not like in a rush to get something done necessarily where it has to happen this week, but I do want to see something get done. Like I'm not there where I'm like, well, we don't actually need to do anything. I don't think that's true. I think we need to do something, but I'm also perfectly fine with being patient on it. And yeah, I think last week, like, give credit to those dudes, man. They stepped up, and Muhammad specifically surprised me because I didn't know much about the guy, and he was cooking a little bit last week.
He definitely was. Hey, Dion, do you have any specific players for the trade deadline? Like, I'm sure you've had 2 or 3 that you kind of pointed out. I know there's a lot of bigger names that are out there. Who are some guys, maybe some sleepers? I know, Hey, you're a film junkie, and I know you love you always have sleepers with the draft and free agency. Do you have any sleepers for the trade deadline for us?
I got some heat. All right, let's run this down. First off,
what do you got?
Here we go. Trey Flowers, right? Keep that name back in your mind. Number 2, Charles Harris. He's on Carolina. He's available. Julian Okwara, Arizona. They're selling at this point. So 3 names. I'm playing. That's he. No, I mean, look, man. I'm with all the buzz right now. Like, I'm with Zadarius Smith. I like the move. I think right now, based on what's available after the Uche thing went down and seeing what that went for, he feels like he's kind of standing out as like potentially just the best available that's like legitimately available right now, where it also could be valuable beyond this season. And I like that idea on paper. And he has a bigger sample size where it's not as much as like, well, he had a good stretch, so we'll see if he could bring that here. I expect him to fit in well if that was the move. So I'm still high on Zadarius. I like the idea there. But a couple of guys, man, I think he kind of came to light for everybody last week. Arden Key from Tennessee. I think he's an interesting option. You look at his contract, going into the next season, he wouldn't probably be like the opposite of Hutchinson, but he still could have a valuable role next season as just like a third down specialist, depending on what happens here with Houston. So I like Arden Key still as a potential idea because I don't think it would cost very much. Just today, I'm trying to dig for the names. Kaylavon Chason just caught my eye a little bit. Not to the point where it's like, okay, you can give up anything more than a 7th round pick, but I think it's interesting when you look at where that team is at. They have their starters back with the Raiders, and Kaylavon Chason right now has kind of stepped in as a free agent signing during the season that's performed pretty well. So I think he's another interesting kind of under the radar option. I'm trying to make sure I'm not missing anybody obvious here, but for me, I think Zadarius Smith is a clear cut. Like that's probably the guy you go after right now if you're looking for sure you're going to get a game changer. And then it's kind of like, do you take a couple of little swings potentially? Will they take a swing? Could they make like a Donovan Peoples-Jones type of trade, or does this have to be like we know what we're getting? And I feel like it's going to have to be a little bit of we know what we're getting, and I think Zadarius checks that box.
And Dion, we'll go down a hypothetical here. Detroit Lions, okay. I mean, at least me and you probably agree. I don't know about the rest of the chat. The Lions right now are the best team in football. What's your confidence level as far as winning a Super Bowl if Brad Holmes and the Lions do not make a move, or if they make a move, it's similar to like the Isaiah Thomas, where it's not anything that's moving the needle? Where does your confidence line for the rest of the season, Super Bowl wise?
Yeah, it's such a tough one, man. Because if we don't make it's like it'll be game by game, right? You'll play teams with great tackles and you just won't feel the presence like at all from that position outside of just occasional blitzing, it seems like. And then you'll play teams where they're kind of average, or maybe they have some backups in. It's like, all right, we did some work on those guys. And then obviously once you get to the playoffs, when it comes down to a lot of teams aren't even healthy by that time, maybe you do get by. Maybe you match up right and it works out well for you. I would say this, my confidence level would be based on the fact that we're 2-0 without him at this point, but I think that the Lions can make a pretty easy case right now that they're the most well-rounded team in football, even when you include Aiden Hutchinson not being there. Like, I don't think there's a great – Kansas City's maybe the closest, but I don't think Kansas City offensively is looking anywhere near what the Lions have offensively. The advanced stats will kind of say that. Plus, Lions' pass defense has been better by the advanced stats than the Kansas City Chiefs, and that's what they've been known for to this point. I think when you look at them, they're just they're the most well-rounded team. They have a top 3 special teams unit in football, right? I mean, pass coverage is playing at such a high level that we haven't really seen to this point, and it's hopefully just going to continue going that way. And then offensively, it doesn't really seem like they have any limitations, and the continuity's there. So for me, I would just base it on, I would take what the Lions have as an overall team, and that they don't feel like they still have any really glaring weaknesses outside of edge rusher, but the Lions have kind of dealt with that before. And if you're getting it from the interior anyway, I mean, that's the best place to get it. And then I compare it to those other top teams, right? Like Baltimore or Kansas City and Buffalo. And I say the Lions are a much deeper, more well-rounded team than all of those teams. Like, I trust offense, defense, special teams tied together than any of those teams. So I'm with you. I agree. The Lions are the best team. I'm still confident. Like, if they rolled in and this was the team for the rest of the year, that this is a Super Bowl contender. That being said, though, I want to make a move. I want to, it's like we had a Bruce Irvin last year. I just want like a couple plays where I'm like, oh, he just beat that guy. He was just better than that really good offensive tackle. Just give me 2 of those. I don't need like 10, I don't need you cooking. I just need like 2 really good plays against Trent Williams when it matters, so I would like to make a move.
Yeah, I mean, to be fair, Bruce Irvin made Derek Carr piss blood. So, I mean, there is some positives in Bruce Irvin. I mean, he was old, but he got some work done. I'll ask you, what about Zadarius Smith? That seems like the obvious move at this point, Dion. Zadarius?
Yeah, I'm with Zadarius, man, because I think for Zadarius Smith specifically, he fits kind of the mold. Like I look at it like this. If I asked you guys, I don't know if you guys have thought about it like this, but if I asked you guys if you could give up, say we gave up a whatever, I don't know, the 4th round pick. If you give up a 4th-round pick and you got a guarantee that Marcus Davenport's coming back for the rest of the season healthy, would you give up that 4th-round pick? To me, and you guys can answer that, but to me, I would absolutely be willing to do that. And that's how I look at it with Zadarius Smith. Zadarius Smith has consistency of being on the field. He's not the exact same player, but he's definitely more into that kind of power rusher type of mold like Marcus Davenport is. So you're not like getting kind of like the Aiden Hutchinson exactly back, but you're getting a guy that plays in the same type of role as the left side defensive end. He checks a lot of similar boxes to Marcus Davenport, and then the potential for next year as well. Like I said, I think that guy is he's really what Davenport you hope that he could be, I think. Maybe even a little bit less potentially if Davenport's completely healthy, but you pretty much can bank on the fact that he's probably going to be out there because that's what he's been over the last few years. So that's how I look at it. I'd be willing to give up a draft pick to get Marcus Davenport back for the rest of the season healthy because I think that could be enough to tip it in our favor.
Yeah.
Hey, Dion, want to ask you this. I've talked about it. One of my bold predictions in the offseason was Jared Goff as an MVP finalist.
Oh, boy.
It seems to start coming into a little fruition here. Where are you at with the Jared Goff MVP conversation? I know last week was the 80 yards was weird, but he threw for 3 touchdowns. He barely had any field position to work with the whole game and like the whole time. And then he got taken out in the 4th. I said it the other day is like, even after the game, it feels like even with an 80-yard performance, it's like he's still in the MVP conversation somehow. Do you think he has a chance and he'll be in that conversation over the next 10 to 12 weeks?
So I don't know if he's still the favorite for a while. Patrick Mahomes is like the betting favorite to be the MVP. And it's like, this is based on literally nothing that he's doing this season.
Yeah.
It's like, hey, we know what he is historically, and they're just not losing football games. So
Right.
if I look at it from that perspective, I got to be like, well, Lions are also 6-1, so he has to immediately put himself there. And the odds have shifted big time. So that's a great bold prediction because like 2 weeks into the season, he was like big, he was a long shot. Couple games after that, it's like immediately that thing just shrunk fast. And obviously the stretch that he's on now is historic. So I think it's absolutely in play because look, Lions have one of the toughest schedules remaining. I think it's like in the top 5, second, something like that. It's one of the toughest schedules. So that's going to play into it. But I look at it as, hey, man, you win the NFC. You already got a big step going that direction. And I think the Lions will win the NFC at this point. But also, yeah, why not? The only thing with Jared Goff that I think works against him is he's just not flashy. Like you watch him on primetime, and it's not like maybe exciting. You know, it's not like, oh, man, did you see that highlight they put on ESPN of Goff last night? Like, no, that was a 15-yard out route. But when you look at the numbers and you see that they're winning a ton, he should actually be in consideration. I think when you look right now, because it's basically a quarterback award outside of Derrick Henry, there's really no quarterback that's like separated themselves at all at this point. I mean, if anything, it looks like Goff is kind of separating himself. So yeah, weirdest game of all time last week. But I also think where Goff is right now in terms of like the consistency that they have around him and kind of just knowing exactly what it's going to look like. And to me, what he did against Minnesota. All right, what he did against Minnesota after what they did last year to Minnesota, it was like, oh, man, okay, that's Brian Flores. He's had some problem with him, and then he just cooked him. But it's like they're a little bit better this year. Maybe it won't be the same. It was basically the exact same thing. Just run it back. Like this defense, if we're being fair here, and all these, whoever's making the talks about whoever votes on this, you got to look at it from the perspective that C.J. Stroud was seeing goats against the Vikings, right? He didn't know what was going on. Brock Purdy was lost. Goff goes out there and just lights him up. He's the first person to do it on the season. So, that's Ben Johnson. We know that. Offense line, all those things. But from Goff, it's not the flashy, it's the results, and the results are right there for him. So I think he should be the favorite right now, and I love that bold prediction. That's beautiful.
And kind of a two-parter here, Dion. We talked about the matchup last week with Tennessee, how it's weird. But looking forward to this Sunday against the Green Bay Packers, obviously a very important matchup. I think outside of the Minnesota Vikings, the biggest game of the year. It's up in the air with Jordan Love and Malik Willis. So my first part of the question is, would you rather face Jordan Love, who you have tape on, or Malik Willis, who is definitely not the quarterback that Jordan Love is, but he's one because I think it's hard to game plan for a quarterback you don't have much film on. And two, how do you think this unfolds compared to the other games? Because outside of Matthew Stafford, if you want to consider Kyler Murray elite quarterback, you can do that. I'm not going to hold you. I don't think he's necessarily elite. He's very good. But I think Jordan Love is an elite quarterback. What do you expect this defense to look like now that there's a legitimate offensive head coach, quarterback, running duo, and wide receivers that the Lions are going to have to face this week? So
this is a weird one for me because the first part of that question is I'd rather face Malik Willis as of now. I'd rather face Malik. But the problem is I think when Malik's out there, you just see how much they expand their run game and and they're just like kind of forcing it. Like we're going to have to use our receivers, and all of their receivers are great with the ball in their hands, from Melton, the Reed, the Watson, they're all great there. So the run game just expands a ton, and they've always had a really good offensive line that's just consistent every season. So I think that's the biggest threat there is that it's going to expand. But I think I, in a 60-minute game, would rather have to deal with Malik Willis, believing that our offense can put up 24-plus points in a game like that, and that the more often I have to put him in a situation where it's like you got to win from the pocket, you got to win there, that more often than not, the results are going to swing our favor versus Jordan Love, where I think Love, obviously he's throwing the ball to the other team, but he also has that ability where it's like the best coverage doesn't matter at times. Like, it's just that the ball is incredible, it's great placement, and the receivers just light it up at times. So I'd rather face Malik. But I think the weird thing about this is coming into the year, I thought that we matched up best with the Packers in the entire division. Like, I hope Jordan Love plays, to be honest. This was the game that I wanted. Hopefully he's healthy, but this is the game I wanted to see because I think that, to your point, Jordan Love, I think he's a top quarterback, and he's a problem. Like, Jordan Love at his best, you don't want to see that guy. I get the interception, but you don't want to see him at his best. That being said, I want to see this defense against Love because I saw last season when the Lions could just sit there and man, and it wasn't about these windows that they would hit, and these guys had to go win a one-on-one, right? These receivers that we like, but we don't all think maybe there's a true number one. When they had to just go win, that's when we start to see things get a little inconsistent. In that second game that they beat us on Thanksgiving, it was like 50% completion percentage against man in that game. I think that this defense is built to beat a team like the Packers and beat the weapons they have. I love how we match up here. I like how we match up here way better than I do against Chicago. So I'm pretty confident going into this game that our defense is going to have a heck of a performance regardless of who's that quarterback. I guess the only thing there is that Malik Willis could shake it up because now it's less about that and more about his legs. But I'd rather see Malik Willis, I think, at this point.
Yeah, you mentioned the Bears. The NFC North, in general, is a very good division. I mean, you could argue the best division in football. What do you make of the NFC North now? Every team's above 500. I mean, every team at this point is kind of in the playoff picture. What do you make of just the strength of this division? Maybe your preseason thoughts to kind of now.
Yeah, I mean, the Chicago one was I feel bad for Chicago. God, then I kind of don't. After you see the clip of dude, like, it was pretty hilarious to see him like waving to the crowd like that. That was amazing. It's like at first you're like, dang, that's very unfortunate. But then you see it back like, yo, he's doing way too much. So I thought coming in, Chicago would be second in the NFC North. I think it's still on the table. I would say the biggest thing, and we'll have to see where this goes, Vikings just made a nice trade, it looks like, to go get some tackle up because that was that felt like their Hutchinson loss. Not to the same extent, but not very far off for them. But I thought coming into the year, Vikings would be last. Obviously, they've completely outperformed my expectations, so I'm not going to be right on that. No chance. That being said, though, I still think they're going to finish last in this division. Like, I don't think they're going to be anywhere near what I thought record-wise. I think they're the worst team in this division. I just don't trust Darnold when they have to win. And we still haven't seen a great sample size of Darnold playing from behind. I don't trust Darnold really that much at all this season. Like, I think he's good, but I just don't think he's great. I think he misses too many guys downfield. He forces the ball at times. So I think they're a good team, but I think to what you just said, like, the NFC North is so loaded. The question was about the Bears, and I would say confidently I think the Bears have looked the worst, at least offensively. I don't think Caleb's really looked that great at any point this season unless they played terrible teams. But their schedule also lays out where it's like they're probably going to just rattle off a lot of wins because of who they get to face. So I think the way this will shake out is, we're going to win this weekend. We're going to beat the Packers, and they'll drop back down. The Vikings will end up finishing last, and I still think Chicago is going to slide up to that number 2 spot, and I could very easily see us getting 3 teams in. It's crazy, right? I mean, we've seen a couple weeks where it's like all teams would be in the playoffs. I think we get 3 in, though, this year.
Yeah, and Dion, I want to just throw out there the secondary that we've seen here with the Lions the last few weeks. Obviously, I think all of us would agree. I think you would just kind of the best safety duo in the NFL right now. But then also the corners that you have going with Terrion and Carlton. What are your thoughts on how, especially like Terrion is a rookie, has performed the last few weeks? Where are you at with that? Because I know like the Calvin Ridley thing, the first 2 quarters was absolutely nuts. And I know there are a lot of Lions fans out there a little worried about that. Just being like, hey, like that, is that going to get fixed? What's happened? And then I know early in the season, all of the flags. Where are you at with the secondary, and especially like a guy like Terrion Arnold going forward?
I mean, look, first off, my man said I got to slow down for his ears. I apologize, LTL. Hey, I was a little fired. Hey, it's good energy. Every time I good energy when I'm on you.
I love the energy.
All right, so let's do this, right? With Terrion Arnold, it was weird, though, because the last 2 weeks I thought, like, oh, Terrion's going this way. I think it was after the Seattle game. I was like, this guy's trending up. And then the game against Minnesota I thought was the best that we've seen, from him this season. And then to your point, he deals with Calvin Ridley, and it was like, okay, that's a top-tier route runner that just hasn't had any kind of quarterback situation this season, and he's just giving him opportunities. And this guy is a vet, and this guy hasn't seen that. He hasn't seen what we're getting here from Calvin Ridley, and he was cooking him left and right. That being said, Westbrook also had some success, but those were more so contested. he's got to get better, I think, dealing with some of these slants. So the slants, I hear it's the hardest, route to cover for a young corner is a slant. And he's got cooked on a couple of those. That being said, though, Westbrook, you got contested grabs coming in. I think the point that you made at the end is the most important, which is we're not seeing flags. And I think, you get the receptions, and obviously maybe that can cloud and make us forget that. But the fact that he's not getting flagged anymore, I think says a lot about the player. Like, we see the mental toughness through a game, right, to bounce back. Even last game, he had a big pass break for us. We've seen that. We've seen the kind of ball hawking skills that he has where he's just kind of a freaky athlete when the ball gets up in the air. But I think it's the fact that he has pulled back those flags that shouldn't be overlooked. And to me, Terran Arnold is still, I think, trending the right direction. He just got matched up with one of the best in football. Hopefully that's not the case all the time going forward. That's why Carlton's here, so that's not supposed to be the case, but it was last week, and he got cooked. But after the first quarter, we didn't really hear from him again, or really the first half. We didn't really hear from him again. So, yeah, last week was rough. Last week was a struggle, but I'm definitely not down on him because I thought coming into that game he was looking the best that he had, and I thought for Terrion, it's this. I think for Terrion, it's just about it's seasoning, right? And it sounds like a basic way to put it, but truly like feeling like the route that's going to come by the situation that you're in. When they run this motion, what leverage are they actually trying to create here so that I can play off of that? It's almost like the expectation for what's coming my direction. It feels like that just has to get to a different level in the NFL because it's like you're just not going to win as you were a great athlete that gets in and out of these breaks extremely well. Because even when he did, he still got beat last week. So it's like you have to have an ability to get a step ahead of these plays. And I just think going against a guy like Calvin, he did not have that ability to get a step ahead of plays. But I thought going before that game, he was. I thought Minnesota, he was showing that. And I think that's why you're getting less of the flags because he's not grabbing at this point. He's leaning more on his athleticism and his anticipation rather than panicking and grabbing guys. So I'm very high on Carlton. Not Carlton, Terran. I think your whole question was about the secondary, though. I apologize. I just started talking about Terran. I don't even remember what the question was, to be honest with you. Could you remind me what was the question?
I know it was about Terrion and just how you thought he would do kind of moving forward. So I think you're spot on there. Hey, Dion, you're killing it, man. Let's go.
You got a percentage of the question right. I got about 80% of that question right. The rest of it, just forget about it. It didn't happen. Yeah, I mean, look, hey, you said that the best safety duo. The Packers had something to say about that for a minute. They were like, hold up, our safety duo is a problem. Look at Xavier McKinney. We're about to find out this week. That's why I want to see Jordan Love. I want to see him throw some picks to the safety unit so we can just kind of end that because clearly what Brian Branch is capable of has made our defense Here's what I'll point to. The one thing, red zone defense. It goes back to last year in the playoffs against the Rams. When we got healthy at the safety position, and all of a sudden you didn't know who was going to blitz, and you didn't know if the safety was going to man up the slot because he's capable of doing that when CD Deuce was playing. And all of a sudden you carry that to this year, and it's like anytime a team, I don't know why the Titans threw it 4 straight times. Still don't understand that at all. But regardless, hey, that made no sense. But when you start throwing the ball, because because you have this versatility in the back end, it makes it so difficult, and I think that's where the versatility shines as soon as they get into the red zone. We're seeing that with their red zone pass defense.
And, Dion, we just talked about a whole lot of Bama. We talked about Calvin Ridley, Terrion Arnold, Brian Branch, Xavier McKinney. But we haven't brought up the best Alabama Crimson Tide member in the NFL, and that's Jahmyr Gibbs, baby. And he's been on a tear the last couple of games. What do you think Jahmyr Gibbs – where do you think he ranks in the NFL right now? Because we know his talent. Where do you think he ranks among other NFL running backs? And where do you think his season will continue to go? Because we see David one week, Jahmyr the next. But do you think Jahmyr's been on the tear that he has been? Do you think there's a way that he keeps it up even though he's splitting a backfield with David Montgomery for the rest of the season?
I'm trying not to sound crazy with this quick because it's so tough because it's like I feels like you say one guy, you're like, oh, you don't think Montgomery's that good? Like, no, Montgomery's a dog too. Yeah. Here's how I'd say it. Behind Derrick Henry, I think maybe CMC because he's not here, but because he's not here, let's just not count him. That's fine. We'll just ignore him. I'd say he's the second best running back in football then. I mean, to me right now, but because if I'm looking at a running back and I got to go against the opposing team, right? You could look at Alvin Kamara. That's fine because he'll catch the passes a little bit more, and we've started to kind of implement that a little bit. But my thing is if I'm going against the opposing team, and I'm like, what running backs do I not want to see? I don't want to see Henry because he's going to wear me down all game, and obviously he has that big playmaking ability where he just takes off on guys. But I also don't want to see Gibbs for that exact same reason. And it's because Monty's there that I think Gibbs is even better, and this offensive line is playing so sound right now that's the guy that I don't want to see if I'm another team. Because that touchdown run that he had, like that shouldn't have been that way. Like I know he didn't get touched, but the safety's standing there. You're thinking, okay, 15 yards maybe. It was like a half a second. The dude was 5 yards behind him, and he just started jogging. He just started jogging. You just don't want to. It's almost like the Chris Johnson kind of vibes. Like you just don't want to see that guy because it only takes one to change the game. And in the NFL, it really only does take one. We're scoring in the 20s. So I'd say he's number 2 right now. I think he's got I don't know if the stats would say it on the season, but it's like over 5 yards per carry now for like 6 games straight. I put him number 2.
Yeah, he's a sicko. I mean, that's what he is. He's an absolute sicko. Yeah. We appreciate you, Dion. We kept you a little over than what I told you. But you know what? You're preaching there. Appreciate you as always. You guys check out Dion. He continues to cook. Dion, we'll talk to you soon, my friend. Appreciate you.
Man, I appreciate y'all, man. Hey, thank you guys for having me. Hey, I'm glad we were able to do this because it's been a minute. There was a little bit of gap there. But now, hey, football season's over. We're locked in. I appreciate you guys having me, man.
Get you back on soon,
Dion. Keep crushing. There you go. Dose of Dion, the man.
Appreciate it, Dion.
Legend. Joining the program.
Love
Dion,
Dion, man.
He knows ball.
Oh, dude. One of the best ball knowers that we know, I think. Dion is locked in, dude. He
gotta
is
have,
so good.
Klotzy and Dion sit down, like ball knower.
Me and him both struggle with talking
ball.
fast too. Like whenever I hear Dion talk, I'm like, thank God I'm not the only one. Because there's times where I start talking, I'm like, like in the middle of my time, like, what the fuck was I just talking about? So I'm glad I'm not the only one that struggles with it. Dion,
He's just got a lot of knowledge up here.
We need to get Klotz and Dion in a room like John Gruden's in with the big whiteboard and just guys, fellas, just go talk ball for an hour.
Those videos are crazy. That's
just go talk ball for an hour.
Football content wise, as far as watching people break stuff down, John Gruden's right now is without a doubt like kind of a tier of its own. Did you guys ever like watch like the ESPN when he was on there, like on like the Monday nights? Like those were just like him and Mike Tirico were the best Monday night duo that you could have, in my opinion. Like when John Gruden, whatever happened with the Raiders, like John Gruden's just a guy that I love listening to him to talk football about. He's one of the original like just pioneers of football.
He would sit down with the collegiate quarterbacks. Wouldn't he?
Yeah,
do you remember his Jameis Winston when they talked about the Gruden's QB camp? All that stuff was just gas.
Earlier, I didn't get to shout out, but shout out Brian Westcott became a Crunch member, which you guys can. Link will be in the description as always. Stephen Clark. Appreciate you for the $2. Says how to become a members again. My sub was canceled. Link is at the top of the chat, Stephen. You can click on that, or you can go to the description and click on the link in the description of every video. There's always a link to become a member. Appreciate you donating to ask that question. And if you become a member, we appreciate you. But that's how you can do it. What's up, Boone?
I just want to ask because and I guess we can go back to back here. We didn't get to finish the JMO stuff with we went to Dion right away. I just want to know where your guys' thoughts are on the situation now that it's again, the Wade stuff. I even put it out on Twitter. Like, it felt like it was very, very well said by Wade. A lot more clarification on the situation. Obviously, we don't have the full details, but like for what we know, I just wanted to get your guys' thoughts on that. Even people in the chat. I wasn't able to read the chat after Wade got done.
So I'll say this, man. Like so again, like I think earlier, my initial reaction, my frustration was with JMO being in these situations. Now with Wade on, I will apologize for my overreaction. Like I think Wade put it so well, and that's why I wanted to wait till he got on to really get like the legal perspective. Like again, I'm not going to sit here and act like I know the law. I can only speak on Lions and what's been going on and reacting to news and sharing my opinion. But Wade joining the show provided more context, like that legal context that we're missing, obviously, with his expertise. And I thought he did such a great job, simplifying it. Like, and I'll just say this, dumbing it down for me, because, we didn't go to school. I didn't go to law school. We don't know all the legal side of it. So I will say this, my opinion on JMO, in terms of me being just like, I guess, disappointed that we have to always talk about this stuff, is still there. Like, it stinks that like the news keeps popping up with like ridiculous stuff. But I will say the journalist who wrote the article, like WXYZ putting this out, was unnecessary. Like they did not have to do this. Like, if anything, it just hurts JMO. And like, I completely understand that side of it. But I do want to apologize, not for, because some of the things that I said in the video earlier, and just like, I do believe I still have that opinion, but I guess being a little over dramatic on it. I think that's where I'm at. Like I was a little over dramatic, I will admit. But it does stink that with the suspension and like even the simple fact of getting pulled over and having whatever, all this BS coming out, like it is upsetting. But like my overall opinion on it, like whatever, like you keep it moving. I don't think he'll get in any trouble with like law or the league or the Lions. So like the only thing I wonder, guys, is how this affects him with Brad Holmes getting a deal. Like that's where my head goes, is like, not that I think he won't get a deal and not that I want him to not get a deal, but I'm just curious because Brad and Dan like preach a certain standard for players. I wonder how this will affect JMO when it's time to get an extension. I'm just spitballing here. I'm curious. That's my big thing.
And I get what you're saying. I think it all really depends on just how he responds to, because through the first 2 years, it's if he continues to have these issues, and obviously I wouldn't expect a gun issue and a substance issue, but if these issues were to continue, I think it's something that would only help the Lions case financially. Jameson Williams would still be very well off. He'd still be making more money than three of us combined. He'd be an NFL player, so he'd still be making good money, not to the money that he could be. But as far as just this whole situation, I think you guys know I pretty much said, like, I truly, and Booner, you were kind of with me, not to the full extent, but I did not care about the substance situation, because it's just like, all right, whatever. Dude pissed out something he didn't really have in his body, and it's not even a drug. It's not weed, whatever. When I look at a situation where it's like, okay, you have a pistol. Obviously, when you buy a gun, that is something very serious. And if you're going to be a high-profile athlete, you should carry a weapon. Like, I hope that Jameson Williams would carry a weapon, especially if you're driving out at night, people try to rob you, etc. He made the right decision in owning a gun. But I do think it is incredibly moronic to ignore the CPL, because I understand that states change their laws. It varies from state to state. But if you're owning a gun and you're a high-profile athlete, I think you just need to check your boxes and just get everything complete. So I think this is a little bit more serious, in my opinion. It might not reflect that in the NFL suspension, but this is something where I think it's truly just like, dude, this is dumb. I'm not saying, oh, J-Mo, he needs to be arrested. Nothing like that. But I just think that between like the two stories, this is probably the more serious one, just because it's, in my opinion, way more in control than something that you could let sneak into your body and not really realize it. I think that it's just like I said, it's a young, dumb mistake, but I have trust in Jameson Williams, the people in the Detroit Lions organization, to get all this stuff right on path. And it's just a big bump in the road. Two big bumps in the road, but Jameson Williams, he's not a dumb human. Like, when you hear when he gets pulled over, he's showing respect. He's not acting ignorant. He's not acting like a fool of himself. Like, he realizes, and he's taking accountability for all these things. And I trust J-Mo to get it back on track. So to answer your question, Jeff, in my opinion, it'll affect him, but not something where it's like, oh, Jameson Williams, you're not going to be able to get a contract. Like, obviously, he will. He's immensely talented, and I think he's only going to mature more. And he's a player that the Detroit Lions obviously do value. They traded up 20 picks to get him in the first round, so they know his potential. Honestly, it might be a way that you can keep Jameson Williams in Detroit if he's asking for big money, because if he turns into this Devontae Smith, Jalen Waddle, T. Higgins, people will be willing to pay wide receiver one money, but it's probably going to be the teams that are like, hey, we need a wide receiver one badly. And in Detroit, you can keep winning. You're going to be on a Super Bowl caliber team, but you're not going to be making as much money as you could somewhere else, which would probably be the case regardless, but a little bit more now that he has all these things going on outside of football.
Yeah, I think too, like the thing with it, guys, and I think it's an instant reaction. Like when you see the JMO news stuff, it's just people jump right on it and like instantly think worst case scenario. And I think that was like today, that's the problem with it. Until that's why I loved being able to have Wade on to kind of get clarification on what the situation is, what it's about, how is this thing transpiring? Was it something JMO did? And obviously it seems like it's not. Like the article and everything, like whether the Ross Jones or whoever made the article went out and got the information, or the information got presented to him and he kind of just went and did his job because someone brought it to him. Whatever it happened, it's the way going about the article, maybe pinning it on JMO and putting it on JMO, knowing very well what you're doing and what kind of the picture you're painting. And now an investigation gets opened back up because there is that, obviously not the pressure from him, but there's pressure from the Detroit police. Like, hey, like the news got a hold of this now. Like we have to make sure we did this right and everything's good. And now it gets posted again and you get the investigation. And now JMO's in the news again. Like it felt like, again, what Wade mentioned and what stands out to me is that every day this happens to non-famous people who go, they don't have their CPL and they're maybe getting it, or it's in the mail and they don't have it on them, and then their gun's in their car, but they have it registered, and there's something with it. And the police officer is able to say, make a choice, like, are we, are they okay to leave, or should we bring them in? Like, is it an obvious bad situation? And the police officers did what they did. They called their supervisor, called multiple people, and in the article it did say, like, they called multiple people to see if this is a situation to where, hey, we can let them go, and they did that. They're like Wade said, they're allowed to have that decision. So that was, to me, it was like, now that it just got brought back up in the news, opens this investigation back up, and all of that. That's where it's a little like, I don't know. I don't know. Because if this, it gets painted like in the article and everything online, it gets painted to where it's like, the reason that they let him walk was because he was Jameson Williams and he plays for the Lions, which to Wade's point, that was far from it. That happens all the time with people that aren't on the Lions and aren't famous and aren't rich. Like, it happens all the time from what Wade's saying in that sense. But this article and everything online is being painted to where, hey, he got off the hook because he's Jameson Williams. And that wasn't it. So that's where I do think, like, the clarification on that end makes a lot more sense, to where people online maybe don't jump to the conclusion that JMO did something wrong. Now, yeah, if you're going to have a gun and have it in your car, and that, like, you do have to know. It was the same situation. I don't know if you guys remember with Michigan last year with Mozzie Smith, where Mozzie Smith had a registered gun, and his CPL was in the mail, and he had the gun in his car and got pulled over while it was in the mail. Or like Wade said, he has a client that had a couple days until his CPL came in, and he had it in his car and gets pulled over in that time span, and the officer lets him go. And that was what happened, similar with Mozzie Smith. Like, it happens. And then, it happens with everyday people. So I don't know. That's what I took. That's what I took from it, guys. I didn't take anything bad from it. Like, I don't think JMO, he's not out to, like, you see people around the NFL, guys, like,
hurting other people,
putting Jordan Addison stuff in there. Like, there are so many different things around the NFL that are 100 times worse than this, to where JMO, like, the police officers did the, like, a short investigation when he was pulled over and felt it was okay for him to leave, based on the situation at hand. And the investigation gets opened up because it becomes more public. Like, that's tough. Like, that's really tough. That shouldn't happen to JMO. And it's brutal.
But again, like, although this whole situation is like being at least WXYZ, it's being, like, really overblown. Like, it's, now with the Detroit Police Department's kind of getting, like, involved here to, like, attempt to, try in their minds, like, make things right. Like, to what Wade said earlier, like, it was in the jurisdiction, or it was up to the police that were on the scene, those guys, to make a decision. They obviously made one. So whether it's not really about whether or not it's JMO, so they let him go because he's JMO. Like, I think everyone would admit, athletes, there are, especially hometown athletes, there are going to be, a little more leeway. But you can't just look at him and be like, he got away because he's JMO, because, like, again, to your point, Booner, this happens with other people where some people may get in trouble for it. Some may, like Wade brought up earlier, how there was someone that, his CPL, like, he was getting, like, something with, and the police basically was like, hey, well, you're good. I get it. You had your CPL, whatever. Now you don't, like, you're getting it. Okay, you're fine. Like, it's up to the police officer to make that decision. So, it's unfortunate. I just think the end of the whole, like, to tie it all together is this, like, for Jameson Williams, you are a young up and coming superstar in the National Football League. He's very good. But here's the thing. It's just simply putting yourself in these type of situations he's got to try and avoid. Like, that's the thing. With being Jameson Williams, there's a lot of perks, like being famous and making money and playing football and being damn good at, being recognized everywhere you go. But you're also under a spotlight. Like, if this situation happened to Joe Smo down the street, no one would care. But since it's JMO, now everyone cares. Everyone has opinion about it, including us, including myself. So at the end of the day, like, when you do go out and get in a vehicle and you have your pistol under your seat, you got to think, like, if we get pulled over, this could be the situation. It's just about thinking ahead, because again, with JMO, like, whether we think some of this stuff is bullshit or not, with both suspensions that he's had in his career and then this coming out, like, it's just not something anyone would want on their resume. So moving forward, just the goal for JMO, just stay out of the news. Like, it's not that this is specifically all JMO's fault, because it's really the reporter who blew this thing up. But you get what I'm saying. He's like, just do your best to avoid these type of situations. Like, and I don't have a huge problem with him saying, like, I get why people would read it and be like him saying, I'm Jameson Williams, like repeating to the officer, like, hey, I'm Jameson Williams, I play for the Lions. The more I thought about it, like, you see things like some guys end up getting in terrible situations when they don't make it very known that they're a professional athlete. Like, he's just reminding the officers, like, hey, I am a high profile athlete. Like, so I'm not going to harp too much on that either. Like, if anything, it's better to just say that to kind of avoid any, problems happening, whatever. So this whole thing to me is, hopefully in the next week or so, it's blown away. It's nothing. We don't have to talk about it. Like, I see John in the chat, and John's been doing a good job reporting on it. Let's see. John Macaroon says, so blaming Ross Jones is silly. He says, whenever an athlete interacts with police, someone is going to know. It's not Ross Jones's fault on reporting on it. I guess it's just the verbiage in the reporting.
That's what I was going to say.
That's what Wade was saying. It's like how the report was explained, or how the article was explained was kind of, it seemed like in the article how it was phrased. And I read it in the video. It did come off as like, yeah, they like JMO being basically like a spoiled athlete who got off because he's JMO.
Yes.
You know what I mean?
And you could have put in there like, hey, like Wade said, hey, this stuff does happen where, non-athletes and non-famous and millionaires also get this type of situation. This is a situation where police officers are able to take it into their own hands, and they're able to make a decision to let the person you pulled over go or not. That's where I think when you write those types of articles, and again, I never went to school for journalism, but in my mind, especially with what Wade said, if you're writing those articles, we see it all the time in today's news with stuff. You can definitely in a way to where you can make it sound a certain way to hate at people. There's hate articles out there all the time. I'm not saying Ross Jones had a hate article. Your point, Jeff, when you do read it, you do get a sense of like, hey, JMO, he kept saying he's from the Lions. He kept this, he did this, and it was laid out in a fact where it was like he got away with one. It's like, hey, you should put in there as well. From what Wade said, this happens all the time. Police officers are allowed to have the discretion of whether or not to let someone go in these situations or not. And they made the decision that he felt it was safe for him to go. So that's where I think the wrong is. And that's where I think people are allowed to be a little upset about of the way you went about writing the article and putting it on Jameson Williams, especially knowing that he's on the suspension. And like, it feels like the way you write that article, it's, and I'm not saying clickbait, but it's like a clickbait to where it's like, the stuff that JMO has gone through in Detroit, especially now at the time of the 2 weeks here with the suspension. Like, my question would be, I know you probably have to go through it. Why is this coming out now all of a sudden with the suspension? Why didn't it happen when, a couple weeks ago? Maybe it had to go through some time, but it's a month later.
Probably
now
something like that.
Do you know what I'm saying? Like, it's just a lot of things where it's like, it feels like it's a low thing for a lot of clicks and for it to be more public. And, we want to get Adam Schefter to tweet it out. This,
I was about to say, I actually got some clicks.
That's where it feels like it was done a certain way to where it's like, hey, you can do these articles. Like, I want everything to be in the news. You want to make sure everything's fairly reported, but let's fairly report it and not make it a one-sided to where it's like, hey, JMO should have been arrested. Like, whoa, that's essentially what the article it feels like. It's like, what are we doing here? Like, yeah, he was detained, and they felt it was okay to let him go. That happens every day in the world.
Yeah, I don't know. I just kind of go ahead, Jeff.
Shout out Doc. I'm glad you read more than a headline. Thank you, Doc. Let's go, baby.
I was gonna read some of the memberships. You got anything to add, Klotz, or you want me to do?
Yeah, I was just gonna say, just to wrap it all up. Like, in my opinion, you guys don't have to share the same, and obviously none of you in the chat do either. But for me personally, I do not give a damn what anybody else does in their life if it does not affect anyone else. For example, like the Jameson Williams, like the substance, the gun, like Jameson Williams is not hurting anyone else. He's not being a menace to society or anything like that. So when these things pop up and people are just trying to tear other people down, it's one of those things where it's like, do you really care that much, or do you just want the attention? Because if it's not affecting anybody's life, if it's not affecting a random civilian, because that random civilian could be Booner, it could be you, Jeff, it could be me. If you're not affecting that and you're just making personal choices that could affect you, I don't care. Your life is yours. How it affects you, it will. And especially if it's not affecting the team long term. I saw somebody drop in the chat, but last year, Jack Jones at the Boston Logan Airport, had a piece on him that was fully loaded going through the airport and left there in handcuffs. And then he's playing weeks later, making plays for the Las Vegas Raiders. So this whole thing, I don't think anything will come out of it, and nor should it. So it's just mind your own business.
I have this, like Stephen Clark says, I had the same thing happen to me last year coming to Detroit for a Lions game from another state and had my gun in the car. He says I was let go and reminded of the Michigan laws. So there's your example.
If I were to come in Ohio right now, you don't need anything in Ohio. It used to be you needed a CCW. You don't even need that anymore. So I could just buy a gun right now and I could carry it on me. If I go to visit you guys real quick and I leave it under my seat, have it on my and it's registered and everything, you're really going to drop a felony on me? My record is completely clean. Jameson Williams' record is completely clean. No, you're not going to give a guy a felony over that.
Well, here's I want to read some in here. Alan W. says, Jeff, Dan knew about it for weeks. Lions released a statement saying JMO immediately informed them, and Dan came out and said he trusts him. So, yeah, that's a good point, too. They knew about it even prior to Dan speaking on 97.1.
And it must not be as bad as what people are making it out to be. If Dan is saying that and he knows everything's fine like that, there's no way.
Appreciate Ryan Van Valkenburg. Valkenburg? Hey, Ryan. Appreciate you for becoming a member. Drew as well. Drew became a member. IT Hips as well. I remember these people are becoming members once again. So I appreciate you guys. Stephen Clark became a member. J Rod as well. He says, member for 5 months. Welcome new members. Everyone smash that like button. You know what, J Rod? Hold on. You're absolutely right. Smash that like button.
Hey, the members must have carried over now that we're back, because that's 5 months. He's a 5-month member, so they must have carried over.
I think he bought 5 months of a membership. Or has he been a member for 5 months?
He must have been a member.
You guys both have. I don't know who would be right here.
I don't know.
Both great ideas. Boone, you were cooking, but then Jeff came from the opposite side of the spectrum.
Who was it? Maybe we can ask him. Did he buy 5 months, or did he?
You answer that, Aaron.
Or did it just renew? Because streams only member for 3 months.
Michael and Dante also became a member, so we appreciate you for that. Thank you.
Streams only.
Streams only member for 3 months.
For 3 months. I think the members. I think they just win. I think once you buy it again, you get all of your time back from before. Could be crazy.
There you go. You guys see Dan's quote. Speaking of quotes, he responded today to his original, jump up and down could be comment, because that was like a big thing yesterday, and we talked about it. And he had his interview today with 97.1, and this was his response, because they asked him about that again, of course. And this is Dan's response. He said, Dave Burkett asked me a question and I answered, but he wouldn't take that answer. So I jumped up and down with the same answer. You guys are wasting energy. That's what he said. Dan Campbell. Dan motherfucking Campbell. He said you guys are wasting energy. Because he said could be when asked about a potential move coming in the future. And then I believe because he said could be, and then someone else started asking a question. Dave was like, whoa. And because Dave knew he had something there. He's like, well, what do you think of that? Whatever. Could it happen? Whatever. And then,
So it was a troll.
Dan was like, could be. And then he jumped up, whatever. He jumped up and down or whatever he did. So,
hey, Dan is.
He's a meme. He's a walking meme. That's what Dan is.
That's just really like a troll that you.
Do you guys?
Sometimes it's funny, but that one is like, ooh, it just stinks a little.
But do you guys think he's just playing mind games and he knows like the deal? He's like, I know Brad's working, because he just keeps saying like Brad's working and Brad is like making sure something happens, but then he'll troll and do the whole jumping thing, and then he'll go on today and be like, you guys are wasting your energy. Like, I feel like he's at a point, and he's been a head coach for 4 years now. You know that you have to keep things close to your chest, and maybe this is what one of his chess moves of being like, I'm gonna play both sides of it as a joke, and no one will ever know what side is right. Like, I feel like there's still obviously there's still gonna be something that happens, and Dan's he's just enjoying it. Like, he's like, this is fun to play games with the media. Like, he's like, you guys are my puppets right now.
I mean, there definitely is some of it, but I just think he's probably in the same mindset that he was a week and a half, 2 weeks ago when he was asking these same questions. Like, I don't think the Lions really learned anything defensively that they didn't know going into the game against Tennessee. And I think not much has changed, except it's now close to the deadline. There hasn't been any significant moves, so the questions are ramping up. Like, what's going on? What's going on? The same thing is going on. They're probably going through the exact same process. That's why, like, wasting your breath. Like, You could have asked me this a week and a half, 2 weeks, 3 weeks ago, and I'd give you the same answer right now. But it's just the deadline's closer. Now the Ravens, the Chiefs, a lot of these contenders are making moves, so it's going to want people to make a move in Detroit even more.
By the way, Doc just became a member. So
Hey,
the DOC.
Really, the DOC helping supporting the fellas.
Detroit Sports Podcast, a.k.a. the Doc, a.k.a. John Macaroon, a.k.a. the DOC.
He'll be joining tomorrow. I cannot wait to talk to the Doc.
Yeah,
we got a lot to get into with the Doc. The Purple Prince says he also said today that teams don't want to let go of good players, so Brad is working through that. Does that make us think that we are getting a good player? I did not hear that part, but that is interesting. And then Michael says, I honestly don't think Brad is going to do anything, and it's giving me nightmares. I love this time of year. I do. Oh, God, it's so much fun. I love covering sports. And honestly, football specifically, I mean, it just seems like the Lions every year, it's like a different trade deadline conversation. And it's like all teams are probably having one. The Brad Holmes operates, and he those walls, nothing leaves those walls. You don't hear a peep, not a report. You hear, what was it? Was it? I don't think it was Albert Breer who from ESPN. No, it wasn't. It was ESPN. Someone that he made a phone call about Hassan Reddick. That was like the only little snippet we've caught so far. Like everything else has been nothing. It's been very quiet, which I don't know whether to be more excited because I'm curious. I'm who could it be? Or I'm you're poking. You're poking.
Can we have a little trust circle, boys, real quick? A little trust circle.
Yep.
And so I'll say this. And Booner, I more so want to ask you again. This is a trust circle for you in return. There's not going to be any judgment. Just open forum here. The Lions' defense is better than it was last year. I think we'd all agree with that. Offense better than what it was last year. So, do you think that kind of scales back Brad's aggressiveness to actually get a trade done? Because, and this is a trust circle, boys. As the days go on, I just do not think there's going to be a move made, at least to the Zadarius Smith. I just don't. I don't see that happening. That's, again, tell me where I'm wrong, Boone. I want to hear your confidence. More so the opposite side. What are the odds that Brad doesn't get a Zadarius Smith deal done? And then just overall, do you think it's likely now that this whole team is better, less likely a trade happens?
Yeah, I mean, I listen. I think it's very clear that the team is better than last year. They've improved at all aspects on defense. Even honestly, guys, even the edge room, the outside of Aiden Hutchinson last year, they went out and got new guys in the edge. Levi stepped up, Josh Pascal stepped up, and then they went and added other depth pieces, which was better than last year. Now, with that being said, I don't think Brad, again, I think the difference from last year to this year, and I've said this a million times heading up to the trade deadline, is last year it was never Super Bowl or bust. That was never the Doc's in the chat now, and he was in all those press conferences last year, and there was never a conversation where it was, hey, we're all in it for a Super Bowl. It was always just the NFC North playoffs. And this year, again, I feel because I mentioned this yesterday, so I apologize if I'm repetitive with it. But again, I feel this year it's all offseason long and every press conference and everything. It's Super Bowl, Super Bowl, Super Bowl, Super Bowl, to where Dan and Brad, they do know, hey, we are very, very thin at the edge position. We know we are. We need to address that. I don't think Dan would be mentioning in these press conferences that Brad is out there working and doing his due diligence. He is. It's very clear that Brad is working and doing everything he can to go get an edge rusher. I think that's very clear. Now, if it doesn't end up working out, I think at the end of the day, we could all sit back and be at least we know Brad tried. It's not. I don't think it's a situation where it's Brad just sat back and didn't do it. He went after Danielle Hunter and Chase Young last year, and that wasn't even the Super Bowl window that he had talked about. This year, you lost your number one edge rusher, and you're in a Super Bowl window. There's zero chance. I'll put it on my life for anything. There is zero chance Brad is not out there making phone calls to do it. If something falls through and things fall through, you could be yeah, you have to be better at that, and you have to make sure you get a deal done. I wouldn't be shocked, too, guys. I know we keep throwing, and we as fans, this happens a lot, and even in the free agency, we do it all the time when guys leave teams or oh, hey, I want to get traded, this, that. We constantly are oh, this player to the Lions, this player to the Lions. Think about it. It might not be don't be shocked if it's not Zadarius Smith. Zadarius Smith is someone that we all love, that we have put out on social media and have made it a thing. Like that's what that is. Same with Trey Hendrickson. It could be a player that we have not even talked about yet. Like it could be a player that no one even knows is in the trade market right now. So like I think people need to prepare themselves for that one. And again, if they don't end up making a deal, like I was talking with the doc earlier. Like in the doc, I saw him on Twitter going at it. Like, guys, I think this team they have right now, I know it's hard to do it. And Klotz, there is big challenges of winning a Super Bowl with the edge room that you have now. I still think you can go win a Super Bowl with the current roster. Like I think this current roster, we're going to do our power rankings later. Our current roster right now is the best team in football. And that's without Aiden Hutchinson and without an edge room. So like, I still think you can win a Super Bowl and you're a contender. Yeah, it's going to be harder, but you add, like, you're the best team in football and you don't have the greatest edge guys. You add an edge to the best team in football, even if it's a Zadarius Smith.
Yeah, we will get into our power rankings in a couple of minutes here. I'll answer that question right after I give some. Oh my goodness!
Not gonna say thank you to you know what, but shout out. You know what?
Hey, Boone, you might have to.
Yeah,
I don't know if I can.
Daddy, honestly,
I'll say shout out Booner's daddy. I won't be like, I'll just say the second word. Shout out Booner's daddy for that. Shout out. Split a 30 pack and a zigzag on me, boys. Shout out.
The people are saying it could potentially be the doc.
That's
he said split a 30 pack and zigzag on me, boys. Booner's daddy.
That might just be Dan Campbell. That might be Dan Campbell's burn.
It could be Dan Campbell. You're a legend. Appreciate you for that, dude. That's huge.
What are your thoughts on that, though, Jeff? Because I have something else I want to say in regards to the trade deadline. I do want to make a statement. So I would like you to go.
So, okay, here's my thoughts. Sorry, Booner's daddy got me. That's massive. Appreciate him. Okay.
Yeah.
Lock in.
We're just repurposing our own money into our account.
Yeah. All right, let me lock in. Okay. Klotzy, to what you said earlier, you're more skeptical about them making a move.
Correct.
I'm starting to lean. I'm not there. I'm leaning in that direction. I'm leaning in like the, it's too quiet. But I don't know. Like I still, guys, if there's a move to be made, to me, it has to be a Zadarius Smith. Now, to what you said, Booner, maybe it's not. But here's the thing, and I'll say this. I think Zadarius Smith is like and maybe this is like a little over dramatic, but I'll just say it, the least you could do. Like, I think Zadarius is like, no one's mentioning Zadarius like he's the savior and he's Max Crosby. That is someone that can just contribute and give you some more depth on the edge. So I don't really know, like, with all due respect, what's below Zadarius Smith? Like, I mean, maybe you're getting maybe you're like, I'm serious. Like, I don't know. Like Dion was making jokes about like Trey Flowers. Like maybe you're getting to like those type of players where it's like you're really reaching deep in the bag here and getting like not very good players. I don't know. I thought Zadarius, everyone could pretty much consensusly agree like that's a guy that wouldn't cost a lot, would come contribute. And, he wouldn't make up for Hutch's production, but he would be a contributor, which is what they need. They need depth, number one, but they need contribution on the edge, like someone that can win one-on-ones. And that to me is Zadarius Smith. Maybe not to the extent he could when he was 26, but at least to some degree. And I know people mentioning Josh Uche is like lower than that. I mean, that's fair. He's already gone. But I think Zadarius is like kind of the least they can do. I really hope they make a move. I do. And I'm trying not to be fully there, Klotz, because at least trying to understand Brad. I think the quieter it is, like he's working, like he's cooking something, like he's brewing something. So that's where I'm like leaning. They won't make. I'm in the middle here. I don't know what to think. I'm a little. Am I worried? I'm like a scale from 1 to 10. I'd say about like a 5. Like I'm right in the middle. I'm not gonna hit the panic button yet and say like, oh, no move's coming. But it's you see teams making trades. The Baltimore Ravens traded for not anyone in the secondary. They traded for a wide receiver, which made no sense. But they traded for Deontay Johnson. I knew he was cheap anyway. And then the Chiefs are trading for a wide receiver and a defensive end, or kind of a Sam linebacker, whatever you want to call them. But that I think this week something gets done. I mean, when's the trade deadline? Next Tuesday? Like, You're getting close here. Maybe Brad's waiting to closer to the deadline. Maybe you can get like a desperate team trying to trade a player. But look at the Vikings. The Vikings lost. Guys, take this as like a lesson here. The Vikings lost Christian Darrisaw, one of the best young tackles in the league. He's very good. Lost him for the season with an ACL. What did they do? They went and got Cam Robinson, a starting tackle from the Jacksonville Jaguars. Like
instantly, within days.
Instantly. You know, and people like me would look at the Jacksonville Jaguars and say, you know, the Vikings and say, not a contender. But they still traded for a tackle to replace their starting young, up-and-coming Pro Bowl tackle. You know, like, think of the Lions. You just lost your all-pro defensive end. Go get a defensive end. Like, you know, that's where I'm at with it. I hope they make a move. If it doesn't happen this week, it has to happen Monday, I guess, or Tuesday before the deadline. But I'm still in the middle here. I'm losing confidence by the day, but I haven't completely lost any.
And just before you go again, but I'm not saying you're saying, but just to clarify, my confidence is not completely lost. It's just I'm probably, if Jeff, you're at like a 5, I'm probably at like a 6 or a 7.
Okay, so you're a little higher than me.
Not completely hopeless.
That's fair. I mean, you said last week, Booner, Tuesday, you'd want a deal done. Ideally,
yeah, so I think
ideally.
Yeah, and that was just only because of the Green Bay Packers. Like that, you're playing that. Now, again, if it doesn't happen, you have until next Tuesday. And guys, it's not a bad thing. Like, yeah, it might be a bad thing because you don't have an edge. You just won 2 games without Hutch, essentially, and you don't have an edge room, like a great edge for the Green Bay Packers game. So that's where you're a little like, if you can find a way to win in Green Bay without making them deal, guess what? You probably can get say you were going to get a player today, right? Like Zadarius Smith. And guys, I don't know what he's going for. So this is a random number. If you were going to go get Zadarius Smith today and you offer a 5th round pick and they take it, if you wait until the trade deadline day and the Cleveland Browns get desperate on getting a pick, you could probably get him for a better pick and get him for a 6th round pick. So maybe that's what Brad's doing. And he's like sitting there and he's like, I will wait until Tuesday for certain guys because I know I don't have to give up as much. Like, think about how important these picks are to Brad. Like, I'm sure Brad would rather go through a Green Bay game and try and get a win that he trusts Dan Campbell and this team and say, hey, let's pull out one more win here and go one more game so I don't have to give up a higher pick. Do you guys see what I'm saying there? Like, does that make sense? Like, that's where my mind goes a little with Brad. I don't think it's like a worry of him not making a move. Like, guys, it's hey, are you a buyer or are you a seller? Last year, guess what? They were buyers and they went after guys. They didn't get a couple because they weren't desperate for it. Guess what? This year, you're more desperate. This is what I want to announce. I have a major announcement. Are we ready?
Ready, Boone.
Klotz, you're the CPO of the Booner Path, correct?
Correct.
Jeff, as a janitor of the Booner Path, I need your go ahead as well. You're a janitor, correct?
I'd like to have some weigh in the decision. I would go ahead.
We are adding a new piece to the 2024-2025 Booner Path.
Okay.
Originally, the Booner Path was obviously go win the division, get home games. It was to go beat the San Francisco 49ers, beat, all the Dallas Cowboys, the Seahawks, the 49ers. The number one goal with the Booner Path this year. Last year, it was to win the division, get a home game, potentially get a second home game, and all you have to do is win a road game in San Fran, which we obviously didn't do. This year, the main point of the Booner Path is to get the number 1 seed, and you get 2 games. 2 games in Detroit. And what have I always said to you guys? You do not lose games in Ford Field. The Detroit Lions would never lose a playoff game at Ford Field. So if you get the 1 seed, as the Booner Path says, you are going to a Super Bowl. Your first ever Super Bowl is Detroit Lions. Now, and Jonah said that's obvious, Booner. Well, thank you, Jonah. Thank you. We're adding a piece to the Booner Path.
Okay.
A 7-day plan. We're on a 7-day plan.
Okay. That's
Brad Holmes, I'm talking to you right now. I am talking to you, Brad.
Wow.
This path goes to the 1 seed. You have big games ahead. The Green Bay Packers, the Texans, the 49ers, the Bears twice, the Vikings again, the Packers again at home, the Bills, the top 5 team in football.
No.
To get the number 1 seed, fellas, give me an edge. Go give me an edge, Brad. I want a defense. I want an edge rusher. I want someone to get after Josh Allen. I want someone to get after Jordan Love. I want someone to dominate Brock Purdy. Go find me someone in the next 7 days. Get me Max Crosby, Brad. The Booner Path needs, and emphasis, we need an edge rusher, Brad Holmes. I trust you with my life. Go get me a pass rusher now, Brad. Please and thank you. I will make a phone call. I said I'm one phone call away. I can call a person or two to get on the phone with certain people in my life. Go get me an edge rusher. That is right now the only thing. Klotzy is the CPO of the Booner Path. All of the army in the chat. We have one goal the next 7 days. We blow Twitter up. We blow YouTube up everywhere. Hashtag. Let's come up with the hashtag. I don't have a hashtag. Let's come up with one.
Yeah. We'll think of
Get
it.
an edge.
Yeah.
Get an edge.
Build the bridge. Because we gotta build the bridge.
It has to be a hashtag with edge in it, Klotzy. We need an edge. Hashtag with edge.
Okay.
And we spam it everywhere. Because Brad Holmes better go get us an edge. I'm telling you guys that. That's
sure
now part of the Booner Path.
I'm sure you guys will. Yeah, I'm sure you guys will work that out. Obviously, I'll be the janitor, but I'm sure you guys will work that out, figure it out.
And as the CPO too, Boone, I know we don't maybe see eye to eye and everything, but we're good at sticking to the same goal here. And it's getting the Detroit Lions to a Super Bowl. And where we don't align, ideally, is where my stance on if they don't get an edge is no Super Bowl. But you disagree with that. You think if they don't get an edge, still can get a Super Bowl.
Yeah.
But with this, it's the common ground where you need to get an edge in order to get there and, in my opinion, win the Super Bowl. You think they need to get an edge to close that gap. So we align here, Boone. We align. I'm stamping that.
Listen.
Going through the PR, going through all the PR notices. It's clean. It's clean. It's a good thing to add to the path.
Listen, people say, Booner, it's obvious. Your path is obvious. Everyone knows your path. Listen, last year, people said, well, you could take all these different paths to the Super Bowl. You always have a chance. No, Jeff, what did I do? I laid out the best path and opportunity to get to a Super Bowl, right? That was, or the NFC Championship game. That was the goal. This year, obviously, the path is the 1 seed. What's the best opportunity to get the 1 seed? You add pieces. When you're down, you need something to pick you up. We're doing this. Hashtag edge path. That's all it is. Edge path. Give me an edge on the path. We want an edge on the path.
The edge path. We might need to get that approved by the PR department because there's some.
Well, we'll think about it. As CPO
we'll
marketing, we could have better marketing opportunities.
we need it now. We don't have time to think about it, boys. We have 7 days.
Boone, well, we got the doc coming on tomorrow. We can run it by the doc.
I don't know if I like
the edge path. Why can't it be the edge path? What is that? Do you guys have bad minds? I'm confused.
No,
I'm not Why are we making this a joke over there?
I just think it's very in the moment. We can think about something better to get full maximum potential and exposure, Boone. Come on now.
No, we're all right. I almost want to fire him for the CPO right now. We need to get things moving along here.
He's giving you the most PR answers. Yeah, I mean he's. I mean,
everyone's just taking this so wrong. I'm trying to be serious here.
Okay, you know what? This is what we're gonna do.
I need you. You boys are just laughing at me.
No, I'm not laughing at you. We're laughing. This chat is they're hilarious though. I can't even lie. Whatever. We'll get in the meeting room, figure it out. We'll launch a marketing campaign. All right, that's what we'll do.
We'll get merch out for it.
We'll figure something out.
We have 7 days. We can't sit here and go hey, we'll figure it out in a week. No, we have to get this tonight. Tonight.
Yeah. Don't worry, it'll get done.
Yep, we'll cook it up. All right, you guys want to get to our power rankings here? We'll see if I finally.
That's a weird comment, by the way. Let's not do that.
What?
That's just a weird comment. A little too much, too far.
Wait, what? What happened?
I'm not gonna say it, but there's a weird comment. There's just a weird comment in the chat.
I didn't see it.
All right. Well, how about this? Serious. All right. We're serious here.
All right. We're serious.
I'm going to let the chat chew. Chat, let's be serious for a second because we have to push a narrative the next 7 days. And I promise you, narratives that we've pushed have gotten into the building at Allen Park multiple times. Let's get something together here. Put your hashtags in there. We'll figure it out. And by the end of the show, we'll pick a hashtag and we're pushing it over the next 7 days to go get an edge rusher here in Detroit?
Hey, I don't hate it.
Hello?
Anyone
Sorry, there?
No,
no,
I was messing with my Wi-Fi.
Yeah, your Wi-Fi was that was, but never mind. We'll think the names haven't really been coming through that aren't kind of messed up names, so we'll just we'll kind of just there's these names in the chat are probably not what you want to put here.
I don't understand the edge the situation that's going on.
I didn't.
Do you know what it means? Okay, I'm not gonna.
No, I don't. We're talking about. I mean, dude, any word in the English dictionary, you can take it as a wrong way. Like, why don't we grow up, huh?
Hey, okay, yeah, that's fair. All right,
no, it's all right. I do the same thing all the time. So I mean.
He's like, let's grow up, and then I'll say something. It's like, what the. Is this guy? You might have taken the crown this last week over me. I mean, I've got.
Yeah, that was you left the back door open and Booner kicked it in. That's what happened. You found a way to leave the back door open.
That's crazy. What you just said is crazy. All right, let's get power rankings. Let's get you know what? Let's just get we'll just move on. Just move on. All right.
We'll come back to it after the power rankings. If you're around here, the 200-300 people, we're gonna have a hashtag after the power rankings.
Okay, that's fine.
I'm gonna keep an eye open.
All right, let's get to. By the way, I'm gonna go. Let me go last because we're gonna find out if I have the Lions first or second here. We already kind of know.
Changing up the order, Klotz. This is interesting.
So let me the reveal if they've earned the number one spot on my
something
list.
Must be happening here.
If they've earned the number one spot. So Klotz, you're gonna go first here. Klotz, I want to see your list.
Yeah.
All right, Klotz, let's see you. The Chiefs have moving up.
I told you they would. Those Kansas City Chiefs would slowly work their way back on up. And what was my biggest thing with the Kansas City Chiefs? They didn't have any playmakers. You go get a DeAndre Hopkins. He's not Houston Texans DeAndre Hopkins, but playing with Patrick Mahomes and Andy Reid, he's going to have the biggest opportunity to look like that. So right now, Kansas City Chiefs, that's the big thing. But starting at number 10, Pittsburgh Steelers, they're 6-2 now. They're leading the AFC North. They have won with Justin Fields and Russell Wilson. Their defense continues to make plays. I don't necessarily love anything about the Pittsburgh Steelers, but I like a lot about them. And I just think the Steelers are what they are every year. They're always a playoff team. They're going to continue. And I think right now, somehow, they're my favorite to win the AFC North just because I think they have the most consistent week-to-week play out of the teams in that division. Number 9, though, the Houston Texans. I understand they won this week, but it was way too close for what it should have been. So that's why I like the Philadelphia Eagles beating Cincinnati by the way that they did in Cincinnati. Houston was at 8 for me last week. Philly was at 9. So I was like, okay, who had the better win right now? Houston will probably get better, but with their injuries offensively and defensively, they just do not look the same. 7 was the Washington Commanders, and I wanted to move them up, but it was just a lot of the teams in the top 5 for my power rankings lost. So it was really hard for me to hey, I love the Washington Commanders. I love that they beat the Chicago Bears on a Hail Mary, but are they better than the Baltimore Ravens? No, I do not think so. So that's why they're kind of saying stagnant. Baltimore Ravens, I've said that I do not consider them a top 5 team because of their defense, and that showed last week when they played Jameson Winston. The Cleveland Browns, they don't even have Amari Cooper, and they lit this defense up. Lamar Jackson, he's going to have bad games throwing the ball time to time. But when you don't have a defense that can create plays like they consistently have in the past, I think it's really going to show. I think when Baltimore gets behind in the game, they can still come back, but compared to the other perennial teams in the NFL, I think they have the most difficult time just because they're so reliant on the run game and they don't have a secondary. Number 5 is the Minnesota Vikings. They're at number 2 for me last week. And like I said, Baltimore fallen kind of made it easy for me to slide them in there. I think the fact that Puka Nacua came and was active 2 hours before the game, that's Brian Flores' worst nightmare because then the man went off. And then when he stopped going off, Cooper Kupp finally got in the game. It was a close game, good game, but I think the Minnesota Vikings are definitely going to be a team that's falling down the list more and more. But then this is just going to go why do you have the Ravens behind the Minnesota Vikings? And I think it's just, again, personnel thing. I think if the Vikings were to play the Ravens right now, the Vikings would win. 4 is the Green Bay Packers, and they were at 4 for me last week. No, I think they were at 3 for me. But the going down to Jacksonville does absolutely nothing for me. When you look at the Buffalo Bills, adding Amari Cooper, the way that Josh Allen's playing, I think that's the second best team in the AFC. And if they were in the NFC right now, they'd be right there with the Detroit Lions. So they're number 3 for me right now. Kansas City Chiefs, like I talked about, boys, if I can go into it more if you want me to, but they even got an edge rusher when they didn't even need one. So the Chiefs, they're going to make their way back up, but the Detroit Lions are number 1. And I can hear you had the The Chiefs down on the list because of injuries, but the Chiefs weren't blowing teams out 52-14. Even like the Chiefs this week, they beat the Raiders by a touchdown. If the Lions played the Raiders, they're winning by at least 2 to 3 touchdowns. I think right now, because we haven't seen DeAndre Hopkins play yet, the Lions are still the number one team in the NFL because the Chiefs still are what they are, but the teams in front of them did fall. Kansas City Chiefs most likely going to be in the Super Bowl. Right now, the Detroit Lions are playing better football without a doubt. So that's my top 10, boys.
Yeah, I'll ask you. Can I ask you this, Klotz, real quick?
Yeah.
What's with the Vikings at 5? What makes you think they're?
Yeah, that is crazy. I will say.
Compared to what?
Just in general, like I mean,
because they were my number 2 team last week in Baltimore. Hold on, I don't have my phone on me.
I have your list.
I had Baltimore falling 3 spots, I believe, and Minnesota falling to 2. And when you look, okay, 1 loss to the Rams and 1 loss to the Cleveland Browns with Jameis Winston and no Amari Cooper. I just think the Baltimore's loss was a little bit worse, and I still think that Minnesota's offense is not up to par with Baltimore's, but they're the better team offensively and defensively as a whole right now. Maybe not long-term as a season, but playing right now, when I look at Baltimore's defense, Justin Jefferson's going for 150 yards. They're going to get TJ Hawkinson, probably start coming back this week. Aaron Jones is put back-to-back, but 2 good weeks. And it's not like Sam Darnold has been playing bad. Like Sam Darnold played a good game against the Rams. He wasn't looking like an MVP out there, but Sam Darnold is not the issue. And I still think that he would have success against Baltimore.
I do want to say this, Klotz, and again, are you not taking into account that the Minnesota Vikings have lost 2 in a row instead of like you're looking at it saying like, well, the Ravens lost this week and the Ravens and
both weeks, though.
The Vikings, but like losing back-to-back weeks after everyone was calling you a kind of a fraud 5-0. You played, you had a couple, like you had the one big win over the Texans, and then you had the win over the 49ers where guys were hurt, and then you're like, all right, well, maybe the Vikings are a fraud, and then they play back-to-back teams and they lose to the Rams and the Lions back-to-back weeks, 2 decent football teams, and it's all right when they finally play a decent team that's healthy. They can't stay with them. That's why I think a little bit with the Vikings, they drop pretty far because you've seen like if it was just 1 week and they drop a game, it's like, all right, whatever. Like it was just a week. Their offense is still good, but they've dropped like the Ravens went 5 straight weeks with the wins. They have the best outside of the Lions. They have the best offense in the NFL. They just added another piece with Deontay Johnson, and you're like, all right, they still have like if the Ravens Vikings played tomorrow. Listen, that's how I look at my thing. Like today's power rankings, if they played tomorrow, I'm probably the Ravens are probably favored, and they probably win that game, especially with the downfall right now. The way the Vikings are playing, losing 2 straight, they're in a kind of a whirlwind going down.
So this is okay. So one, this was made before the Deontay Johnson trade, so maybe, but still, either way, I think going back to where we disagree and. We disagree is for one. I think if the Vikings and Ravens were to play right now, I still think the Vikings would. It'd be a close game. It'd be a very close game, but I think the Vikings would win that game. And then to respond to the 2 losses, when I had the Vikings were my number 1 team when they're going in Detroit. They were number 1 for a while, and they lost the Lions by a game-winning field goal. So I'm not going to drop them down too much. And now that they lost back-to-back, they've now went from 2 to 5 in the matter of 2 weeks. So I think they'll continue to fall, but I'm not going to be like, oh, this team is not a top 6-7 football team. Like this team is still very good. Like I said, having Puka Nacua active 2 hours before the game, like that's really hard to game plan for. And like I said, offensively, they really did not play bad. The Rams played a great game. Like when the Rams have both of those wide receivers going, that's a top 10 team in the NFL. I'm not going to put them there yet, but if they keep winning the way that they are, they don't have to be 6-2. Like I will put the Rams there. If the Rams pick up 2 more wins, I confidently think they're a better team than the Pittsburgh Steelers. So I think they played a very good football team. They're going to drop, but they're 5-6, and I think Baltimore had a worse loss, in my opinion, than the Rams did. Or I'm sorry, than the Vikings did.
Let's get to your list, Booner. Love to hear.
Let's roll.
See what you got. So Boone, talk to me here.
All right, here's the right list as always every week, fellas. At number 10, I have the Pittsburgh Steelers. Obviously, they were at 10 last week for me. I wanted to move them up. I almost moved the Vikings down to 10 and moved them up to 9 just to move them up. But they dominated versus the Giants with Russell Wilson. Russell Wilson had all the stats last year. He just didn't have the full team and the full coaching staff and everyone around him. Like he didn't have the team structure around him. He's with Mike Tomlin now, one of the best coaches in the NFL, one of the best defenses in the NFL. And he does have Najee Harris, Jalen Warren, and some weapons surrounding him to where he's able to make things work. So I like this. Honestly, I love the Steelers team. They're so fun to watch too, which is crazy to think right now. Number 9, Klotzy, this is where we probably butt heads a little bit. I dropped the Vikings down, losing 2 straight games, and I get it. They're 2 good teams. I was under the impression, and again, I had the Vikings, I think, 3rd or 4th throughout that little stretch of football that they had. And I was under the impression that, yeah, you can have all the great players. You can have guys put up 150 yards, Justin Jefferson, all these different weapons, you can have everything. You could still be called a fraud. And I think what was going on in that 5-0 Vikings team, I didn't think it was the most realist thing. And eventually things were going to hit the wall. And that's what seems to be happening right now with the Vikings. I think they've hit a kind of a wall to where they have to either get back on track or their season's going to kind of hit a little spiral. And they're going to be in a tough spot. They'll probably still make the playoffs, but they're not going to sit out there and go 5-2 over their next 7 games again. I'll tell you that. So I have the Vikings at 9. The Eagles, guys, the Eagles started playing pretty good. Like, they now have all of everyone that was injured or anything, everyone is back healthy. Saquon's playing at a high level. A.J. Brown is fully back. Devontae Smith, Jalen Hurts is playing well. They dominated the Bengals on the road, too. Like, dominated. I think they beat them by like 20-something points. Yeah. Like, they went in there and they just manhandled them. So I moved the Eagles up. I think I had them last week. I think I had them at like 9 last week. I moved them up a spot. It's hard to move up right now with some of the teams that are in the top 5. So I moved them up to number 8. Number 7, Jeff, the Commanders, baby. The Commanders. I see the Washington Commanders. Hey, they beat the Chicago Bears on the Hail Mary. Unbelievable play, first of all. Shout out Jaden Daniels. Dominant performance over Caleb Williams. You can go watch that game. Watch the
Shout
film.
out Noah Brown and Tyreek Stevenson. That's who you should shout out.
Tyreek.
Yeah, no, shout out. Jaden Daniels played a good football game still. That team looks good. They're legit. They are a legit football team. So the Washington Commanders at number 7. Number 6 after the loss, Houston Texans dropped them down a little. I had them at 6 before the Stephon Diggs injury. I didn't see that he tore his ACL until after I sent this list. I think I would still have him from 5 to 8 anyways. Like, I think they're just going to be that good. Like, once Nico Collins comes back, they're going to be just like they were last year, just without Stephon.
And to come back against the Lions of all teams.
Yeah. So, like, they still have Tank Dell. They have Nico Collins. They still have the team they had last year, just add Joe Mixon. So, they're still a really good football team. And they might trade for a wide receiver. So, I have them at 6. Number 5, they lost. I think they were at number 3 last week in my rankings. I dropped them a couple spots. Guys, I think this Ravens team, even though they lost, I still think they're a really good football team. I don't care. Hey, when you go up against Jameis Winston, anything can happen. Anything can happen. I'm not going to fault you that much for going up against Jameis Winston. That man's going to be eating dubs in your face. Hey, have you seen Jameis Winston's stat line over like his 17 games as a starter, like over the last couple spots?
Defenses like that for breakfast.
Dude, it is insane. The fact that he is not a starter in the NFL, I guarantee you, next year teams are going to look at him like the Panthers, who don't have a quarter, like, come play for us for a year. Because if you look at Jameis Winston's stat line over his 15 to 17 games starting in the Saints and all these different teams, like, that man just wins football games. It's kind of crazy. Number 4, gave him a little respect this week. Almost had him at 3, but I gave him the 4th spot on my power rankings. The Green Bay Packers. They just continue to keep winning. Jordan Love, I know he's injured now. He might be day-to-day. Lions get to play him this week. Who knows if he plays? I think they're the 4th best team in football right now. They improved defensively. They're good. Offensively, they're good. LaFleur is a great football coach. I like this Packers team. I think they're a good team. It's tough that we have to go into Lambeau and dominate them, FTP, dominate them this week. But they're a good football team this year. So they have a good squad. Number 3, Klotz, I don't know. Where did you have the Bills?
3. We have the same top 4.
All right, love it. Bills should be number 3. They're one of the best teams in football. Like, now adding Amari Cooper, like, he didn't go crazy, but that weapon on that field opens up everything. Yeah. Everything. And then Amari,
because of him.
Yeah, and guys, Amari Cooper is one of those guys. He's not going to do what Stephon Diggs did and complain. He's going to go out there. He's like, he's at the point of his career. He just wants to win football games. Amari just wants to win football games, and I respect that. And their defense is coming together. They beat the Seahawks 31-10. Complete domination in Seattle too. In Seattle, the 12th man. dominated the Seahawks. Number 2, the Kansas City Chiefs, guys. I don't have much to say about that. First of all, actually, their offense looked good, boys. And then number 1, the Detroit Lions. I just looked at the time, didn't realize the time. I apologize, boys. Number 1, the Detroit Lions. Jeff, you can go. I did not realize we were like
at least we're kind of Booner. We had the same top 4, so we're not going to get that too in the depth of things.
I think the Minnesota Vikings. The Vikings is the only one.
Here's the thing, boys.
Jeff has the worst top 10. I'm looking at it right now. Unbelievable.
Oh, I see 10 right now too.
Yeah, unbelievable. The district. This is bias. If you guys want to know a biased take, that's bias.
At number 10. I have the Washington Commanders.
Sicko.
I have the Washington
Commanders.
Commanders.
Just switched it.
Hey, I'll say this. All right, Mister. If they played on a neutral field, who would win? Every single one of these teams would beat the Commanders right now.
Wrong.
I believe it. So they almost just lost. If it wasn't for Tyreek Stevenson, they would have just lost that game. But here's the thing. All right, this is what we have to talk about here. Okay, number 9, the Minnesota Vikings. If you want to swap them and the Commanders, that's fine. I'm not going to fight you too much. 8, 9, and 10, kind of swap them. I think the Pittsburgh Steelers with Russ playing very well. They're moving the ball downfield, which they didn't do with Justin Fields really at all. It's obviously working. You're starting to see that flash of old Russ. I really do like the Steelers, and they moved up in my top 10 power rankings here. 7, I have the Philadelphia Eagles. They look good, and they have to. The thing is with the Eagles is they have to keep this up offensively. Starting to kind of figure things out. Defensively, they looked very good. There are some questions always with the secondary, but I think the Eagles in long term will be just fine. At number 6, I have the Houston Texans. I had them higher, moved them down. Stephon Diggs out for the season. It's going to hurt them. So that's where I'm at with the Houston Texans. I like them as a team, but I think without Nico, without Stephon Diggs, it's going to be hard for CJ Stroud to kind of make things happen here. At number 5, the Baltimore Ravens. I know they lost, but the team is as constructed. They just added another receiver, but still, like Booner said, best offense in the league besides the Lions. Defensively, they have at least their front seven's good, but their secondary. You look at guys like Marlon Humphreys. He's top 5 in interceptions right now. He's taking the ball away. Kyle Hamilton dropped a pick against Jameis Winston that would have won the game. So there's that as well. But I still have them at 5. They're still a very good team. Number 4, I have the Green Bay Packers for obvious reasons. Green Bay Packers are very good. And I think if they face the Ravens right now, that Ravens secondary would face some issues with Jordan Love. Like Dion put earlier, he's not afraid. He will put the ball in tight windows. And yeah, it'll result in interceptions, but a lot of the time, he's scoring touchdowns. So the Packers are very good right now. Number 3, the Buffalo Bills. Yeah, there's not much to add there. Very good team. They've always kind of been in the top 3, top 5 for a while here. Number 2, I did make a change, fellas. I did.
I respect it.
And I made a change because of how the Lions, right now, they're playing the best football right now in the National Football League. Okay. They are playing the best football. They just put the beat down on the Tennessee Titans, and they did what they were supposed to do. They did. Like, if they would have won that game 24-17, it'd be a different conversation. They put up a 50 ball on them, and Khalif Raymond ran for 190 yards on special teams. Like, yeah, they're dominant. And the Chiefs, it was hard because the Chiefs added pieces, but right now you can't – it's tough to argue the Lions are playing the best football as of right now. This list could change, but right now I can't deny. Lions are number 1 team in the league. So that's where I'm at with it.
Boone, you can take it because we agree. Pause.
I mean,
Boone,
listen,
go ahead and say what you want to say because we align on it.
We have been doing this show for almost a year now. I've been working with Jeff for a few years now. I get a good feel when he tries to troll me a little bit. This right here feels like I want to get under your skin. Like I'm trying to push the buttons with this one. Jeff, I could see right through you on this one. You purposely put the Commanders at 10. I know it. There is no way you believe that all 9 of those teams would play the Commanders healthy tomorrow, and they would beat the Commanders would have no chance. That's crazy.
Never said no. Never said no chance.
No way. You just responded like that.
Yeah. No. You can't say no chance. But I think the teams ahead of them would win. I think if you told me right now the Commanders face the Steelers, yeah, they're losing that game. They face the Vikings, I would take the Vikings. If they face the Eagles, I would take the Eagles, so on and so forth. You disagree, obviously, but I don't. I mean, I think they would lose to the teams I have ahead of them, yes. The Vikings, I think it'd be like more of a pick. Like, that'd be a good game. That's why I have them a spot ahead. But you kidding me, the 8 above? Absolutely, yeah. Absolutely, yeah. They're overachieving. That is what they're doing. They're overachieving.
I don't know if over.
Again, how about this?
When you're
I'll
this
give you a
far
nugget.
into
I'll
listen,
give
when
you a
you're
nugget.
this far into the season, there's no overachieving.
I'll
Like
give you a
a
nugget.
couple games in, yeah.
Hey.
No, dude, when you're what are they 6-2 right now?
I'll toss you a bone. Jay Daniels is a big reason why they were overachieving, but they're not. You think what do you make of them?
Have you
What
watched
do you
them yet?
I think they were NFC East.
NFC contender? Absolutely.
They're gonna win it.
I think I said it a couple weeks ago too. I look at them as like the same tier that like Tampa Bay was last year, where it's like you knew they had some pieces, but everyone expected Baker to go in there and take a shit, and Baker was actually pretty damn good. And I think that's very similar to what's going on in Washington right now. Defensive head coach that just knows how, hey, keep the offense simple, let your playmakers make plays and play good defense. So that's why I think like Washington, when you look through their games too, like they lost to Tampa week 1. Okay, that's week 1. Obviously, different situation. You can, if you want to fault them for it, you can. But their only other loss was to the Baltimore Ravens. It was by 7 points. Like they were, and I believe it was in Baltimore. I could be wrong, but it's like they were hanging in there against a team that a lot of people consider a top 5 team. I think they're right outside, but Baltimore's a pretty damn good football team, and Jaden Daniels and that defense look pretty damn good. And I think if you go, like, I think they would honestly, like, they'd be able to put up 3 touchdowns on the Steelers defense. And I don't think that the Steelers offense would be able to do that. Like, I think they would outscore a team like Pittsburgh. I understand. Like I do, but I just think like TJ Watt would be making plays, but I think Terry McLaurin would get the best of that secondary because Terry McLaurin has played better secondaries than what they have going on in Pittsburgh. And he's pretty much produced every week. So I just think right now I agree with you. They're overachieving, but I think it's something where it's not to a level they can't maintain. Like, I just think it's like, wow, no, the Commanders are actually good. Like, they're not contenders. Like, they're not Super Bowl contenders, but they're like a top 8 football team in the NFL. I have them at 7, I believe, but they're a top 8 football team, and I think the rest of the season they'll stay there. They won't get much higher than that. I think this is the team that they are.
So you had them above on your list. You had them above the Eagles, Texans, and Steelers, and we'll just start with the Eagles. Like you really think neutral field they would beat the Eagles?
I think the Commanders win the NFC East. I think that they would absolutely be able to exploit that defense. I think when you look how Philadelphia is playing, that Jalen Hurts would definitely turn the ball over, and Jaden Daniels is a better just pure passer of the quarterback already than Jalen Hurts. Jalen Hurts is good, but they have a different game. And I think that A.J. Brown, like those boys would be going off. It'd be a close game, but right now with how these teams are playing, especially over the last but them going into Cincy was definitely impressive. But the way they've been playing over the last month of the season, yeah, I'm taking the Commanders. They're a better coach football team too.
You too, Booner. You think the Eagles would lose?
I've been on the Commanders train, and I'll stand on it. I think they're a good football team. I had them over the Eagles right now. I think they're a better team. I still think the Eagles are really, really, really good football team though. But right now,
I just think like that secondary, even though the Eagles have some problems, I think A.J. Brown single-handedly.
We'll see. They play twice. So we're gonna find out.
He'd put up. I would say he'd put up a $120 on him easily.
But I agree with you. But Jaden Daniels would also probably have close to 325 total yards. Brian Robinson would probably also have about 80 rushing yards and a touchdown. Terry McLaurin would be getting loose, and that defense.
I don't think they get blown out, but I would take the Eagles.
It would be a close game, so it's not a crazy take. Like I'm not gonna be like, what the fuck? It's just right now. I think Washington's football.
That's where I'm at.
Before we go, I major announcement. This is a big announcement for the Booner Path. I want to ask everyone in the chat, all 220 people watching, Klotz, Jeff, over the next 7 days, to push the Booner Path and to get Brad Holmes to trade for an edge to help this football team accomplish a Lombardi Trophy and bring a Super Bowl to the city of Detroit. We have come up with the hashtag, and we are going to push it on every single social media platform, any chat you are in. I don't care if it's competitors, the flagship 97, everywhere. We push this hashtag until we die for the next 7 days, or until Brad Holmes brings home an edge to Detroit, gives us Darius Smith, Trey Hendrickson, Max Crosby. Ladies and gentlemen, we're doing 2 hashtags here. We should get this to trend. Hold on. Edge to the D, boys! Let's go! Edge to the D. We're bringing an edge to Detroit. Brad Holmes, give me an edge in Detroit. Go get me Trey Hendrickson. Go get me Darius Smith. Go get me Max Crosby. I don't care if they're not. I don't care. And I don't care if it sounds bad either. Every single person right now, if you want an edge to come to Detroit, row the hashtag in the chat and everywhere. Go put it. Edge to the D. Let's go.
One more time, just so everybody can clarify, Booner, what's the hashtag?
Click that.
What's that?
All right. End the show.
What happened?
I don't know what to do here anymore.
It's perfect. It's fucking perfect.
No, Booner, this is good. Like,
this is like
everyone's playing around. All right.
Boone, that's good.
Shout out Jeff Teague.
This is the
Booner, this is what you need.
This is fucking gold.
Because everyone agrees.
Edge to the D.
Yeah.
Come on. Give me Max Crosby. Give me Trey Hendrickson.
No, this is great.
Edge to the D.
Edge to the D.
It should be I should be able to tune in to 97.1 tomorrow, the place I will not name, like Voldemort tomorrow. Every single Twitter post that's made by us, that's made by Honolulu Blues, that's made by the Detroit Times. Everywhere, I should see Edge to the D in the comment section from the start to the end. Hashtag Edge to the D. Hashtag Edge to the D and hashtag Booner Path. I'm done with you guys' minds. I want to hang out with some adults now.
Hey, no, good luck. Yeah, you ain't got adults here. I'll tell you that.
Edge to the D.
No, it's gold. Like all jokes aside, Booner, it's fucking gold. It actually is. It's a great hashtag. Get it trending. Maybe we get on a T-shirt. You know,
I don't know. You guys laughing about it. Everyone's laughing about it. It's impossible to make something cool around here.
You're right, Booner. You're acting like it's not funny. That's the whole point.
Yeah, it's golden, dude. It's fucking golden.
It's a great play on words. Don't worry.
Let's end the show. It's 10:07.
Let's end the show. All right, I'll see you guys.
Michael Daly, I'm not mad. I'm happy. Edge to the D. Let's go everywhere tomorrow.
We'll get out of here. Appreciate you all. And by the way, I want to give a shout out to J Rod. He donated $10. Says, "Where's my wrench?" Well, J Rod, when we give those out, we'll keep you in consideration. We might give some more as we continue to grow. Appreciate you for that. J Hart became a member as well. J Hart, we appreciate.
Shout out everyone.
We'll get you guys tomorrow. The doc will be joining the show.
Edge to the D.
All the nose. Yeah.
Everywhere for the next 7 days. I'm gonna check in on places. I'm gonna be checking in.
Yeah, it's crazy work. All right, we'll see you guys tomorrow. Appreciate you all. Until then, stay blessed. See ya.